Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Brain Trust. Um, um, we're going to have economics episode 77. Fidelity launches Bitcoin Ether platform. U.S. invests $60 billion into Africa. I'm here with my co-facilitator, Lionel.
Hello, how's
What's going on,
everyone
brother?
doing today? I'm good. Yourself?
I'm good, brother. So peace to everyone in the chat, and we will get started with our first article. Give me 1 second to share my screen. One second. Sorry, I had to get my phone real quick. Um, First article is China to pump $175 billion into its economy as slowdown and trade war loom. This article is from the New York Times. The author is Alexandra Stevenson. So basically, what they're talking about in this article is that this trade war has actually been impacting China in relative to this conflict between the United States and China itself. So China's economy has slowed down. Factories are closing. Um, Huawei and LTE, which are the two main state companies, have slowed down in progress because they're no longer getting the contracts that they once were in certain areas, including the United States. Um, Retail has slowed down because production has slowed down. People aren't spending as much. They're being a lot more conservative. It's really starting to hurt China right now. Now, before they can weather the storm, they can kind of, dance around and add a few retaliatory tariffs. But as it stands right now, they're really starting to hurt it. What went from an itch, has now turned into, full fledged rash, and there is no real eczema in sight for it. So I mean, a real cortisone in sight for it. So they're starting to hurt, and we're starting to see a lot more. Um, we're starting to see a lot more pressure come from the United States onto China from Trump. I know. Do you have anything you want to add to this?
Yeah, as I read the article in the beginning, it sounded as if they were trying to say the trade war. Well, actually, it did say the trade war has only minor effects on China's $12 trillion economy. But then after that, they listed paragraph after paragraph the things that are slowing down in China. You mentioned many of the things that's going on in China. Also, they mentioned the government could soon require companies to pay more in taxes and benefits. Some Chinese entrepreneurs also say the business environment is souring. Um, China has also to contend with the stock market that has fallen around 15% this year, and a currency that has lost 10% of its value against the dollar. And on top of that, I often wonder about these other investments in the other countries, such as Africa, that they're doing. They are investing billions of dollars into these countries. So with that and the financial troubles at home, because pumping 170, what did they say, 175 million into their economy, that a billion,
135 billion.
yeah, billion, that screams that the economy isn't doing too well. So for the banks to do that, and on top of that, the I forgot the who said that, but they don't require the banks to hold a amount of money in the bank themselves, a certain amount of money in the banks themselves, which means they can lend out more. All of this screams that their economy is slowing down. There may be something deeper under the surface that they're trying to hide because they are trying to hide news stories that say the economy from China that says the economy isn't doing well. They want to paint the picture of the economy is doing well. So we'll see in the future, but from this, it may be bad times ahead in China.
Yeah, I don't know how long they could weather the storm for. You pump 175 billion into your economy. That means that there's big trouble ahead. United States, you can't even get potholes filled on the
Right.
road. So just with a few bucks. So if they're putting that much money into their economy, that means that something big is coming down the pike, and they probably don't won't see the tariffs being lifted, or at least reduced in the near future. They're probably going to ride this one out for the long term.
And I know a couple of weeks ago, I think a couple of months ago, actually, we spoke about the ghost towns in China, about the real estate market that people speculate is a
Bubble.
bubble there.
Hmm.
It's, I mean, you giving billions of dollars to other countries and then you pump 175 billion into your own economy. That's that's um yeah, screams a recession ahead.
Um, I want to take a few seconds and say welcome to Dr. Yaya. I know her name, her handle from the Prophet of Thought. So welcome to the Black Brain Trust. Good to have you here.
Welcome, welcome.
Uh, yes. Yada Yada actually left a comment that says that I thought all the jobs were going to China. This is true. There's nothing stopping that. Um, but the problem is when you put tariffs on a country um, for certain commodities and certain goods, then what happens is it's harder for you to do business. So let's say, for example, um, if we charge you for every time you wanted to come to one of these hangouts, that's a form of a tariff. Because in order for you to engage in dialogue and listen to the content, we're putting a speed bump in the way for you doing any intellectual business with us. That doesn't really work for the long term, especially if your largest trading partner uh, in China is the United States, and that's where you do business. It becomes a big hurdle for you, and it starts to hurt your economy. I mean, you can fight back by putting retaliatory tariffs, but you don't really do that much import from the United States. I mean, they do have Buick, they do have a few other American manufacturers, selling goods and commodities in China, but not to the extent that they do business with the United States. So you have to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
What else is going on in the chat? Jack Charles says, I thought China's GDP has grown 6.7%. The GDP has grown, but the tariffs are really hurting them. So whether or not your gross domestic product grows, your tariffs are starting to hurt you because as we said earlier, your factories are slowing down because there's really no need for you to produce more goods. Productivity comes to a standstill. People start to tighten up their wallet because they're not working as much, so they're not spending as much. Um, all types of chain reaction comes from these tariffs, and China is starting to feel it now.
And I don't know what plan they had with this Belt and Road Initiative. Initially, it was seen as a broad and grand project on the surface, but as more reports came out that it was China was debt trapping countries such as one country, small country, Montenegro,
Hmm.
India, I believe Pakistan, and now you're starting to hear reports of countries, what they're doing. They're saying no to Chinese these loans. So I don't know if China's plan was to give these loans, knowing that these countries would default on them, and when they defaulted, they'll work out a deal where, okay, give me the land or give me some type of port and have that fuel their economy. But then when this Trump tariffs started to come out, people were saying, "Oh, this is idiotic. This is crazy. He's going to hurt the economy." But so far, it's hurting China's economy more because also in the article it says that China's export was at their lowest since 2016. So all this money China been spending, they've been spending money like they were, like they are a baller or something. So now
Well,
they
they
got
can.
go ahead.
Now, I was just going to say that they can print money. A lot of this stuff is through Chinese banks, the AIIB, the Asian Investment Infrastructure Bank, or the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. They can generate these dollars inside their computers and say, we're going to loan you 1 million yuan or something to that effect, and you sign up for it.
Mm.
And once you sign up for it, you didn't read the fine print. Now you got to give up that hospital. Now you got to give up that road, because they did the same thing in Jamaica. They fixed all the roads in Jamaica, but they put toll booths on the road. Jamaicans aren't used to having toll booths on the road, so
Right.
now Jamaicans are driving through there like, we have to pay this. Well, how else do you think you're gonna pay the money back? Jamaica didn't have any money before.
Sure
Is that
didn't.
do you think that's part of their Africa strategy?
In reference to what's going on, Prem?
Hey, what's up, man? Are they doing like the same thing in Africa?
It's a little different in Africa. Paul Kagame out in Rwanda has already suggested that African countries doing business with China put 2.5% to 3 or more or greater. 2.5% would be the standard, but anything greater than 2.5% tariff on Chinese goods coming into the country, and require that China takes on a similar import from Africa. So if China's exporting cheap Chinese slippers and Croc shoes to Africa, then you have to also take some African goods back to China as a part of import export agreements. So now you have a lot of cocoa coming out of Ghana, um, other minerals, the agricultural goods going back into China from Africa that China has to pay for, and that fuels the economy in Africa, which is why you see such rapid growth on the ground. Everybody has a cell phone. A good portion of people are starting to have tablets now, not iPhones or iPads, but you're starting to see a lot more Android development in Africa, and you're also starting to see a lot more digital payment methods being being implemented. So
Pay
there's growth on the
Paystack.
ground. Say that again.
Paystack.
Correct. You're starting to see more mobile to mobile payments, mobile shopping, and things of that nature. So there's growth on the ground happening in Africa for the microeconomies, but from a macro perspective, it's still a few years away. Probably give them about 3 to 5 years.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just question if China, whatever game they were trying to play, if they played it right, not that if they played it right, if they accounted for all the variables, such as Trump, that's a big variable right there. Such as, okay, we are doing these deals in other countries. What if they don't accept it? Because I think two African countries so far, I think it was Sierra Leone denied, said they don't need, because what they were going to do was build another airport in Sierra. I think it's Sierra Leone, build another airport in Sierra Leone. But Sierra Leone has an airport already, and IMF renovated it. So Sierra Leone, like, no, we don't want your money because you already have an airport. So in my eye, what China was trying to do, say, hey, we'll build you another bigger airport. It's going to cost $60 billion. Got the Pacific number. Going to cost $60 billion. When, hey, you don't really need an airport. You already have one that's just newly renovated. So they default on it and they say, well, just let us use that airport. So now they're flying in their goods in a zone that they don't have to pay taxes in. So I don't know if they didn't play this game right, but it's not looking too good for China, especially if they print money like this. That is definitely not a good sign.
Right, and that's how Akon was able to get his energy project going in Africa was through Chinese investment bank. They gave him 2 billion yuan, which is a lot of money.
Right. And now I'm looking at, now that you mentioned, I'm looking at Akon and I'm like, is he that smart, or you know, is this just coincidental? But if China's
Well,
economy, go ahead.
now I was just gonna say that Akon, kind of put up the, some of the money for himself as well. He didn't walk in there broke. Obviously he had some investment into that as well. So I think he leveraged the investment bank in China to get those solar panels up. And he even said in an interview he didn't want to go too far with it because that could start some conflict on the ground because you're playing around in other people's backyards. In terms of tribalism.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. If China's economy goes down, there are going to be a lot of outside investors coming in and buying up land and other infrastructure in China.
And as far as Akon, I know he does have a residence here in Atlanta. I'm not sure how long he's lived here or how often he lives here, but he's always been opportunistic, especially in the industry, in the restaurants, and clubs, and things here in Atlanta. Prior to what he did, this deal with China, he's always been fall back, kind of behind the scenes, kind of guy after his music career kind of waned off. So, if I was to guess, I would say, yeah, he's a pretty sharp guy.
yeah, Akon has actually brought most of the rappers over to Africa. He's been like a sort of a fiduciary ambassador or envoy to Africa for black people and other rappers and entertainers to put more of their money into Africa rather than to put it in the United States. So you even had Fat Joe all over Africa dropping money off, putting money in, buying property and making investments on the ground. I think I think that's a positive thing, right? If nothing that comes out of Akon's dealings in Africa, I think him guiding a lot of your artists and your athletes into Africa, saying, hey, you can make investments here, there, you know, that sort of microfinancing and micro investing actually helps a lot of activity on the ground in Africa. So I can't really knock him too much for doing what he's doing.
Yeah, and Akon has repeatedly said that he thinks Black America should just leave and go to Africa. So
he's right. I've talked about that on this hangout many times. That you cannot retire in this country. Oh, also, please do not take our advice. We are not certified financial planners. If you go to CFP,
CFP.
I know. I think you know the web address.
Yeah, CFP.net.
Yeah, CFP. Yep, CFP.net is where you go. We are not certified financial planners. Please do not take our advice. We are just here giving our personal opinion. Yeah, so I talked about this before that. I think we went over an article before that. You cannot retire in the United States. It's impossible. With the way the economy is going, it's just not possible to live in poverty while being a senior citizen. It doesn't make any sense. So if I was going to retire, I would take my $100,000 in 401k and I would put it into Africa and live like a king or a queen over on the continent rather than to live in squalor, eating cat food as a senior citizen. It doesn't make any sense.
And to be honest,
how you doing, bro?
What's going on? How you going to go? And to be
what's up, guys?
What's going on? How you doing?
Hey.
And to be honest, that's what Filipinos do. They come here, work 20 years. While they're working here, they buy land, they build a house back home. Africans here, and truth be told, a lot of white people, they go to Eastern Europe or not, different parts of Europe to go retire, or not in America to retire. So the retirement in America that's a tough cookie.
Yeah,
I agree.
You have anything you want to add, Nicole, before we close out?
No. Just agree. Retiring, I mean, I think you can retire, but I think people are coming up more in a semi-retirement. I don't know if you're gonna have the dollars, and if you're gonna live long enough. I don't know, man. It's just the way things are going. That's looking kind of tough. Guys in my generation are probably going to be able to do it, but I think the millennial generation and so forth. I
Yeah,
don't think it's gonna happen.
we're
I
screwed.
don't think it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going ahead and mute myself
Right.
for a few minutes.
Yeah, I'll move on to the next article. All right, so the next article is from ccn.com. The opinion is an op-ed, basically a cryptocurrency and wealth redistribution. Um, I've always talked about this, about what you can do with cryptocurrencies and um, blockchain and so on and so forth. And I've always been an advocate that if the United States was to, and I'm only painting this in reference to black people, if the United States government was going to give back reparations, it should be back in some form of a cryptocurrency, mostly Bitcoin. Now, see, the reason why I say this is that if it's in the cryptocurrency, one, it's secure, so it's guaranteed, and two, if it's on the blockchain, it's immutable, so you can't just cancel it out. It doesn't work that way. And three, um, the volatility of cryptocurrencies make it a lot more valuable. So if you're going to give back reparations, it should be in something like Bitcoin, and you know who's black and who's not, and by white people's rules, the one drop rule applies. So even if you do have a baby, if you have a baby and it has any black in it, then one drop rule applies. Then you're gonna have to dole out a whole lot of cryptos for that. I'm only saying that in reference to the article because it talks about wealth redistribution in form of cryptocurrencies. You gentlemen have anything you want to add to this?
We just had that conversation on the reparations argument a little bit on Obsidian's channel, and Brother Preem was in there. Brother Preem, you have anything to add to that?
No, sir. I'm listening and learning. I'm listening and learning.
Yeah, as far as reparations on the cryptocurrency and so forth, yeah, I guess that sounds plausible. I would look at reparations being paid, not in cryptocurrency in dollars at all, but more really in land, and really more from a standpoint of you know, really shoring up certain kinds of institutions that we would have to enhance education and some other things. So that's fair enough. But as far as my view on reparations, I wouldn't have to do anything with any specific currency whatsoever. That's just my take on it and how I see cryptocurrency. I mean, how I see reparations going down, because I think just giving it in cash money would to Negroes and to grab and spend. I think that might be one of the worst policies that we can have done with that.
Right. And it's unfortunate that Obama missed a big window of opportunity to actually get something going in terms of like an agency that deals with African affairs or African American affairs or something to that
Yeah.
effect, to handle something like that. And the window of opportunity has been missed in 8 years. Like how do you miss that window in 8 years?
It
But
was tough. I mean,
that,
he came in to fix the economy. That's why he was really elected. He came in there to kind of put the economy back. At least try to get what was going on stabilized a little bit. People thought he was coming here to save everyone. His job was to come here and stabilize the economy, do that, and that was really it. Unfortunately, I know we put a lot on the man, but he really had a limited job to do, and stabilize the economy over the next 4 years at least. He made, seems like he's, that happened. But as far as specific deals going deeply with black people and so forth, that didn't come about.
Mhm. Yeah. So I just wanted to answer a few questions from the chat. Orc promo. Have you all heard of Acoin? I have, and it's one of the many 1,600 coins on the list of the crypto market. So where it goes, I don't know. I don't know where Acoin really plans on going, which direction he plans on going with it. So it'd be interesting to see what he does. What else? Jesse, where do you all see West Africa in 50 years? West Africa still has a lot of infrastructure development that it needs to implement. So I wouldn't even give it 50 years. You usually give 5-year spurts. It's usually presidential cycles. So I think in Africa, I think in Ghana, I think their presidential cycle is 5 years. You usually get basing on 5-year increments. I would say if it's going to be 5 years, that it has to be more advanced infrastructure. So you're going to probably see a lot more fiber optic development on the ground. 5G implementation will be the priority though, mostly because everybody in Africa is wireless.
What's going on, brothers?
What's up?
Hey, stop out there.
Mambule.
Okay. You have anything you want to add? Mambule, my friend.
Yeah. So to add to that, right? So this is my question. I know you brothers discussing a reparation, right? Now, seeing that the amount of African Americans in America, right? Would that really help the economy, or would that cripple the economy? Giving reparations as far as in cryptos. I know Nagon was speaking about land. I think that's actually putting more power in our hands. But when it comes to crypto, you think that would that cripple our economy by doing that?
It would not. So the way they were talking about not cryptos, but reparations. The way they were talking about reparations was from a point of like using treasury bonds, because treasury bonds are guaranteed and they have to be honored by the government itself. So that way the government can't renege on the bond itself and renege on the reparation. However, I don't think that helicopter money does not help black people at all. We see what black people do with their tax returns and things of that nature.
Yeah,
as soon as they get the money, they go buy some sneakers and stuff like that. So I don't think that helicopter money is the answer, but I do think that a place to start would be for black people to have unlimited access to higher education. No black person should be paying hundreds of thousands of student loan debt just to get ahead in a rigged economy. I don't think that's the answer. I think that they should have unfederated access to higher education.
Yep, higher education, land, shoring up our institutions, currencies, and.
You there, Nagon? Okay.
Hello.
No, I heard you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That was that was my man O'Shea calling. I just couldn't grab it.
Okay. Pring, you had something?
Yeah, on this, how it's gonna go dole out, and that's what I know is that there's gonna have to be options. There's gonna have to be some folks want a check, some folks may want something. Some folks want a check. It could be Granny, and she may want a bond that just kicks out a dividend, and she may be in her late 60s and doing well and be like, listen, I just need something that's going to kick me 75, 150, $200 a month, and I'm good with that. Don't get too complicated with me, you know. But if you go ahead and shoot down 50 years younger, somebody may be like, look, this blockchain, this crypto thing is a hot thing. I need something in crypto. So, you know, there's going to have to be options because, or not, you know, but you're going to have to recognize that everybody's going to come in different parts of the game. There's going to be entrepreneurial people that's going to be like, look, I need a tax break. You know what I'm saying? Or maybe I want to start a company. I'm about to walk away from this business or whatever, this employment, and I need something that's going to give me zero this and zero that. Well, I go ahead and throw this idea against the wall and see if it sticks. You know, so that I think would be optimal. Is it practical? Because then you just get down into the weeds, and then this person wants this, and that person wants that. I know for a fact there won't be a one uniform thing that's going to be acceptable to all people. But even if it's not, it still may get pushed forward. But if you're going to do the altruistic thing and be all things to all people and be kumbaya, you're going to have to recognize at least 10 different options for people to get that reparations in whatever denomination it may be. Again, bonds, crypto, tax, you know, levies or abatements or you know what I'm saying, whatever. That's it.
And that's why you need blockchain, because blockchain would actually certify that these are authentic signatures and ownership, and that it's immutable, so you can't reverse it. If you try to alter it, then it's going to crash itself, and it won't be usable. For the most part, it won't be authentic. It won't be genuine, and that's why you need something like blockchain to actually address all that. And you would have to take all 50 million plus black people, including the U.S. Virgin Islands and including those who are in Guam, in Puerto Rico, that are considered to be U.S. citizens, should be put onto a blockchain to have certifiable redistribution of wealth through reparations.
Yeah, Mike. And you know, I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but you know, in this country, there's a whole discussion about people getting ID to vote, and if they have, by them not having ID is this, that, and the other, is racist, that, and whatever. But then if you bring this argument forward and be like, listen, we're gonna get everybody on blockchain. I just see that as an opportunity, to if it does come forward, that's going to be a business and an opportunity in itself to get folks able to register, be verifiable, to be in a position to go ahead and get their piece of this pie, simply because of the argument that I see with folks that even having IDs to vote.
I also think that it could help Haitians as well, because Haitians have been screwed out of their wealth by the United States too. The United States owes them a lot of billions of dollars of money that they could actually use. $1 billion can feed every Haitian right now. There's only 10 million Haitians, so no Haitians should starve based on the reparations that the United States owes and that the French owe as well.
Well, the big problem with with Haitians and what impoverished them was the fact that even after they won, their own freedom through war and so forth, they had to pay reparations back to the French, and that's poverty. And then they've been forgiven for that so some years ago, but they were paying reparations back to the French. That was the big part of why I think Haiti certainly had the problems that it did. They were actually paying reparations. Can you believe that?
They call it. They call it reparations, but it was really extortion.
Well, it was extortion, but of course it was extortion. But I'm saying that was the title that they used. In the French then, and of course, and then the Haitians had their own problems with their own inferiority issues and sucking ass to become colonialists themselves, and henceforth the belching forward of such horrible regimes as the Duvaliers and so forth, which did not do the did not do the island nation very well behind its massive corruptions and so forth. But anyway, Yeah, that was a big problem. You know that the French, I mean that the Haitians had, I believe, was reparations.
Yeah, I totally agree with the going on that on everything on he said. That's precise.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yep. That's the bottom line with
So
Haiti.
so this is a question. So let's say, what would a reparation be equivalent to right now? Like how much would it be right now compared to 40 acres in a mule? Like what would that be now?
Somebody really sit down and really, we would have to. This would have to be a study. I mean, there's a way to break this. Have to really look at it and see exactly what this would look like.
I don't even. Hello, everyone.
Go ahead, man.
What the hell's up, man?
What's up? What's up?
What's
That I don't even know. I don't even know that it can be calculated. And if it could, they wouldn't, because if you just think about, the stolen patents and things like that. I mean, if you want to put it all in there, it's not. I don't know that we could ever honestly or fairly be repaired.
But I'm not saying, if I was to throw a figure against the wall and say, would this figure accommodate the argument as a whole for Black America, I would say 60 grand, no more. I would say 60 grand, and I'm not saying that's
60 grand in what? 60 grand? Wait, 60 grand in cash or 60 grand in bonds?
Sir, 60 grand net, however it nets out. 60 grand in cash. If the cash equivalent for bonds, for this, for that, whatever, but 60 grand in cash, and however 60 grand in cash nets out in its equivalent to those other forms wherever else. To the average Black person, descendant of slaves, if they got a check tax free, they're giddy.
Well, I hate your idea. Is anything that says at most? No, we say at least. Let's say that, because I like what Michael was saying earlier. I mean, what we need is things like free tuition. We need a tax waiver. We need business, not loans. We need business grants. Okay,
absolutely.
And the dollar amount? No, it's whatever it costs at the time we're spending it. That's how much that should be paid. So I wouldn't put no cap on. I'm gonna make sure that it's inflation adjusted by not putting a cap.
And this is why I said, me personally, I don't want a check, but I respect somebody else's right to want something in crypto or whatever, and somebody want a check, and somebody want something in tax, and that's why I said there will have to be options. But if we were just to say that, in monetary dollar amounts, 60 grand and whatever that equivalent would be in a tax, in crypto, in this for that person, in crypto for that person, or whatever. But if we were to put it in, if we were to use that as a base, I would say the equivalent of 60 grand in cash. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's I would be against any cash, any cash.
I don't
any cash or currency or cryptos or anything else like that. That is the worst move.
Yeah, I would be.
We would have to shore up, like I said, shoring up our institutions. And
I mean, here's
but fellas, again, and I'm not saying this is the rule. I'm just saying you have to respect the individual's right. There will be people that say, "Give me the money."
Listen, I'm gonna respect their right and say, "No, you're not gonna get it." Okay, that's it, and we move on. That's it. People are gonna be upset.
The problem is when you put it into cash, then it becomes taxable, and for Black people's lack of financial literacy, that money would disappear overnight. We've seen too many basketball players, football players go broke with millions. You imagine you give somebody $60,000 who's not financially literate, that money will be gone within a week. I mean, there's been many entertainers.
Hey, gentlemen, hold on a second. Somebody give C Boogie the link. Somebody.
Yeah, I'm sending it to him now.
Yeah. Send C Boogie the link.
But Mike, I hate to interrupt you and prolong this. I'm not debating that. I'm just saying, can we not respect someone else's right to say, give me that bread, and whatever I do or not do with it, that's on me. It's none of your business.
No, we can
No, because
say
you have
no.
to keep it status quo.
Okay, let's move on to something more practical of what we can do in the immediate. If we talking reparations, let's talk about a waiver of income taxes for IRA or any retirement, 401k distributions. That would be on the list. Okay, that would be immediate. That lots of people can benefit.
Okay, Mike, and I apologize, Mike. I'm gonna be really quick. But if this person has a collection for $2,000 over here, a hospital bill for $7,000 over here, and they say, bruh, a cash in my hand is more immediate to get me right now than that stuff that you are talking about.
Then you put medical waivers on there. Then you just make the bit. You just give what's it, Jubilee? For the medical bill. They don't have to get cash. You make the bill go away.
Right. What you talking? I understand what you're talking about, Praying. If you give everybody this, there's a theory. You make everybody equal. You give everybody the same amount of money at the beginning of the year. What will happen by the end of the year? You get the same things going on now. So if you give people X amount of money, cash, currency, whatever, yes, they're going to spend it. They're going to spend it first. They're going to spend it on Jordans. They're going to spend it on Cadillacs. They're going to spend it on things that they don't need, because once they get this big windfall of money, they're going to think of everything they're going to spend this money on except what they need. Black people are professionals of buying what they want and begging for what they need. So what we're talking about in terms of reparations and we got off topic, is setting up a situation where it will serve us in the long term instead of the short term. I don't care if you have bills. I don't care if you have medical bills. You will have those same bills even if reparations didn't come.
But I mean, and again, I don't want to go ahead and prolong it, but I just see that you have a problem with that, because someone can say, you can't impose that we on me. This was my grandfather or my grandmother, and I can do with this whatever that my grandfather, grandmother didn't get, that's due to me because of what they did here and now today. I don't have to follow what your grand scheme agenda is.
Well, then get out the plan. See,
Right,
this is a like a division that we will all. I'm trying, because we're gonna always have these kinds of divisions, because we have like Cream. You see things just from an individual standpoint, okay? And so your individualism is even causing and people that think that way will be on the outside in something that's collectivist like this. And my opinion is, I don't care. I don't care. So we would just have to be hardline and say no to you.
And I agree with that.
I'm about to cry. Y'all some bullies.
Now, see, I'm sounding like a Republican, a conservative, and I'm neither. See, when you can dish it, but now I'm gonna give you some of that medicine back, and the answer is no. See, we can be strong too on the liberal side.
What's the next topic?
Just give me a second. It's Fidelity, but it's if you want to do the Fidelity one, you can go ahead. I'm just gonna send this out to see Boogie.
All right, moment. Let me bring this up. Okay.
I just want to answer Dr. Yaya's question. So in terms of giving people a clean slate, they have something called ban the box, which is a way to not to look up people's criminal records who've been affected by institutional practices such as the drug laws and other offenses that they were coerced into. When you ban the box, what happens here is your employer or the potential employer cannot see your criminal background. It just shows up as blank. Even if there is one, it just shows up as blank. Now, what they've been doing the last maybe 5 or 10 years, or maybe 5 or 6 years, is you can have your record expunged as long as you say that my criminal record is affecting my ability for employment, this has to be, removed. And depending on what the situation was, as long as you're not a registered sex offender, that can be removed. Even if you sold drugs, you got caught up in a drug raid, got caught up in a drug sweep, then that actually can be removed. So that's the start of the progress.
All right. Our next article comes from Forbes, and Fidelity launches institutional platform for Bitcoin and Ethereum. Let's stop this. Got some notes on it. I read this article, and more institutional investors are starting to get into the cryptocurrency asset space. Cryptocurrency is starting to reach more and more asset management firms. Just last week, we read how Harvard, MIT invested into cryptocurrency. In this particular article, they went over 3 points, 3 main services that Fidelity will be using to service both their retail and institutional investors into cryptocurrency. The program is it's gonna be a business, an LLC that's going to be offshooted called Digital Asset, I want to say Trends. The 3 main services that this offshoot will service is the service will be designed to give institutional investors a compliant way to secure their assets by holding them in a physical vault. What that means is if you have Bitcoin, Ethereum, or any other altcoin that Fidelity allows you to invest in, you can actually give them your private keys to your assets, and they'll store that will be in a form of a physical form of a crypto asset, your private keys. And they'll take that and they'll store them in a vault. And in this vault, your private keys will be cut off from the internet, so nobody can hack it. And this vault will be separate from Fidelity's main brick and mortar buildings. Also, they said other Fidelity digital asset services will include trade execution services, which means you won't be able to trade on Fidelity's platform, but what they'll do is link into crypto exchanges for you to trade. Now, when I read that, it set off a red alarm for me, or red flag for me, because now they're able to track what you trade in and out of, which means they can better track your moves and the tax revenue from that. So there's a number of ways that I see this is good. More and more institutions are coming to the field, which means more and more stability into the crypto asset platform.
Once Fidelity gets involved, because Fidelity is the largest financial institution in this country, bigger than Bank of America, and I would say probably bigger than JP Morgan. And they're one of the first fintechs next to PayPal. If they're involved, they're in it for the long haul. They don't get involved in something unless it's sustainable. And that means that cryptocurrencies and blockchain is here to stay. And if you're not investing into this, and making that a part of your portfolio, you're doing yourself a disservice.
That's why you and I are both adamant about Black people investing into cryptocurrency. You don't have to be something where it's risky. You can invest into the top 10 or even 25 cryptocurrencies according to CoinMarketCap. Those are safe investments.
Right. You can use something like Coinbase if you're not familiar with how to handle wallets. That's all set up for you. Coinbase is like the iTunes of cryptocurrencies. It makes it that much simpler for you. Preem, Dollar Will, anybody else have anything they want to add? Oh, welcome, C Boogie. What's going on, brother?
What's going on? How you doing today?
Hey, what's going on, fellas? How y'all feel, man?
All right.
Yo. C Boogie, you up in here in this group right now?
Yeah, man. I got invited, man. I finally got invited over here, man, and I'm honored, man.
You looking kind of teethy up in here, man.
Hey, I'm honored, man. I want to salute you guys, man. This is good stuff I'm hearing, man. Real talk.
Welcome.
This is a real deal here.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have a question. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. So the for Fidelity banks or whatever getting in. So let's just say, and correct me where I'm wrong. Up to this point, if you got into the crypto game there was a certain kind of process of expectation. You did this, that, and the other. You could go ahead and come up, make a profit, make an ROI. Do you think when these other players, these institutional players get in, that model is going to change? Because if they come in and they bring the girth that they have with them, that they will kind of tweak that formula a little bit differently, if that makes sense. What I'm asking?
I think I know what you're saying. Are you saying that they're going to put pressure on some of these projects to change what they're doing?
Yeah, so like Mike, so like MV said, if you're not in crypto, you should go ahead and get in crypto. So, there was kind of like a certain level of predictability. You get in this way, and if things go right, this is going to happen. But when you have, like an institutional, banks getting in there, are they kind of gonna mess up what's been a constant, what's been predictable up to this point? Because it doesn't serve their interest. They aren't going to come in and play second fiddle to what's already been established. They will create what's established. They will create the norm.
I doubt that, because there's money we talking about. There's this opportunity to make money, and it's another asset class that's burgeoning. It's only next year will be its 10th year in alive. So people want to make money, and they're not going to come in here and go ahead.
Yeah, do
No,
you
go right
mean?
ahead. Go ahead. Finish your statement. Finish your
So
statement, Lionel.
so people want to make money, and when these institutional investors come in, they're going to bring weight, for lack of a better term. They're going to bring a lot of money, and the clients that they have, they're going to tell them, hey, invest in Bitcoin. It's expected to be 50, 60, $70,000 in the future. You get in now on the ground floor, you get a big ROI, and other crypto. So I don't think they're going to come in and change it. And regardless, it's hard to change this because it's so quote unquote decentralized. There's no one entity you go to and say change this. It's isn't. I don't foresee that happening.
Mm-hmm.
Are you concerned, Preem, about price appreciation not being as, let's say, generous as it was during that run up because of the presence of these institutions? Is that what you're concerned about?
And or they throwing a monkey wrench into it to where it's, they create a different way, or to kind of stagnate that way, create another new way that serves their best, that serves their interest, something that they can kind of corral and can control.
I would say, like Lionel said, one, they want to make money too, but then I would say just then yes, in the sense that there are certain investment vehicles related to cryptos that you have to be what's the word for it, Mike? When qualified investor, that's it. When you have to have $100,000 or more and all that, but that's common in investing. But yeah, in that sense, there might be some things that we can't invest in, but I don't think that it's going to make your make cryptos any less profitable for you as an investor. And as what Lionel is saying, as far as transparency issues, there's that we'll see. Because now we talk about the tax issue and the record keeping of it. That part we'll see.
Right. And when Fidelity said go ahead, Mike.
No, I was just going to say I don't think that the IRS has come up with a mechanism as of yet to partake in tracking cryptos. They just don't have the infrastructure set up yet, or even available to them. They just don't see the value in it. And it's only recently that they've actually been having conversations about it. Now we covered these articles last week about Yale, MIT, Harvard. They're using their endowments to invest into cryptocurrencies. So that tells you that this is something that's here to stay. But they're also coming up with they're also coming up with ways to not be tagged by the Fed. Crypto in Puerto Rico is actually a crypto hub now. So you're starting to see a lot more stateside investors go over into Puerto Rico and get their fintech startups going and actually use it as an offshore vessel.
And with this Fidelity, they said that they'll two things. They said that they allow their investors to do trades under the Fidelity, but not with the Fidelity platform. What they'll do is connect you to these crypto exchanges, and there you can do your trades, which means they can track your public address and track what you swap in and out of. And to Nick in the chat room, I disagree with you. Said the IRS can already track your investments. All I have to do is hit up Coinbase, Bittrex, Coindesk, and Binance. Maybe they can hit up Coinbase. Coinbase is secured through the, I want to say FDIC now, along with Gemini. Maybe Poloniex, but Binance, no, Binance is not headquartered in America. They're headquartered now in China and Malta. Malta is also a crypto hub. If the U.S. approaches Binance and say you want data for your U.S. residents, they'll just start kicking U.S. residents off their platform. That happened before, not with Binance, but with other crypto exchanges. So I agree with Mike. Go ahead.
No, finish your statement, please.
Yeah, I agree with Mike was he's saying that the IRS don't have the capability to track all of these trades. What they're doing is trying to track through Bitcoin's blockchain, track these public addresses and see if they are American residents or not. It's pretty much hard to track the in and out trades.
And what you can also do is set up who's making all that noise? What you can also do, and I've seen people do this, is that they could set up offshore nodes and things of that nature, and just use a VPN to connect to it and do their business that way. I mean, the feds are one step behind, and the tech guys are all 2 steps ahead at this point. They don't have the infrastructure or the human resources to go around tracking all this stuff. Now, what they have talked about is going to the ISPs and shaking down the ISPs like Comcast, Verizon, and Sprint and AT&T to actually give up some of this information that they have, but about who's dealing cryptos or not. In my opinion, you can't really do that without a warrant. You need a warrant to go out and do something like that.
So if I could just launch a question out there to any of the crypto folks, and I really admit I don't know about crypto, I don't know about blockchain or whatever, but when it comes to trading and finance, do you see if Wall Street came in and said, okay, because what I know and what I have heard is that one of the biggest hurdles or problems for crypto is liquidity. Is that it's not that liquid. But once you have the institutional banks and this and that coming in there, if they say, listen, we're going to bring our girth, we're going to bring our size, our clients, our base, whatever, we can give this thing liquidity, but in return for that, well, let me just phrase it this way: with the crypto folks, the diehard, the indigenous folks that were there from the day one people, would they be willing to trade off? Because in life, there's going to be trade-offs. Would they be willing to trade off the integrity, not necessarily selling out, but the way things have been done so far for the ability for this thing to be liquid, like hella liquid? Would they be willing to make a trade-off?
No, you're coming from a centralized standpoint. When I say centralized, say Bitcoin. Say Bitcoin had headquarters in New York. Say Ethereum headquarters in San Francisco. Say XRP headquarters in Los Angeles. So these big institutional players can go to each of these top cryptocurrency headquarters and say, we'll put liquid into your project, but in trade for the liquid, we want this. You're coming from it from that standpoint. the closest thing that's centralized to that these projects are centralized are their teams, the developers that work on the project. So you really can't go to a central source and say we want this, because the whole thing about blockchain and cryptocurrency is it's decentralized. There's no one source you can go to and say we want this. So that'll be hard to do that. The best thing they can do is put liquidity in it, because the market is around $200 billion. Its height was around $830 billion, and it's speculated to be a 10, 20, 30, $40 trillion market cap. The best thing they can do is put liquidity in it, see it quote unquote moon, and make a whole lot of money in the deal. Why would you try to get them to do something when you could potentially make millions and billions of dollars?
Yeah, can I ask a quick question real quick, man? So
Thank you. Respect. Thank you. Respect.
No problem, man.
yeah, so from my knowledge, is what over about 1,500 plus cryptocurrencies,
Over
like
2,000,
around.
about 2,116.
Okay, so at what point does it start to lose its value? The more cryptocurrencies start to pop up.
Well, I'll compare that to the traditional stock market. You got the
Hmm.
S&P 500, you got the Dow Jones Industrial Average, which is about 30 countries. Well, 30, not countries, but 30 stocks. You got the Russell 2000, you got NASDAQ, you got penny stocks. So there's thousands and thousands of traditional stocks. So cryptocurrency is just another asset class, another way to invest. So there's going to be thousands of cryptocurrencies you can invest into. N- Now, you don't have to invest in those. You can just invest into the top ones that you know have staying power. But there are going to be people that come out and penny stock type of cryptos. They're going to be out there. It's just another asset class.
Yeah, and also on this channel, we talk a lot about the fundamentals, but we also talk about the technicals and technical analysis. So if people are following this channel, you will learn as over time a little bit about technical analysis to try to gauge your risk of staying in for the long term, because there is nothing is always safe. There's a time to sell everything, and you will get that kind of feedback on this show.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, as far as investing, cryptos are not too different than traditional stocks. It's investing. It's a way to earn money, a way to earn dividends, or whatever the case may be. It's just another way of doing it. Hello?
Oh, we're here.
Oh, okay. I thought I lost you.
No.
Next article. Hello, Mike, you there?
Is everyone muted?
Yeah.
No, I just stepped away for a second, but
Okay, no worries.
I'll fire up the next article. Just give me a second.
What's going on, Gravity? How you doing?
Good, man. How's everyone on the panel? What's up, guys?
What the hell's up, man?
Doing, brother. Doing.
What's up, Anti-Grav?
Not much, man. Not much. I see Boogie's on there. What's up, man? And Dollar Will,
Hey,
Charles.
what's up, bro? How you feeling, man?
Doing good, man. Doing good.
Get your money right and straight ahead.
So look at it. And one more. She teethy.
Hey, Mike,
Teeth.
can you the article that you posted, Mike? Can you post it in the chat also, so that they can see it? So if they need to bring it up.
Yeah, it's also
No, it's
all right,
not under. It's not under in the description under the video. I've been posting them as we go along, but I say, hey, you're right there at the article, so it'll probably be quicker for you to go on and put it in there.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay, thanks.
Whoops.
I'll okay, you got it. Yeah, you got it.
Yeah,
You got it.
give your analysis on this, and I'll
Yeah, the IMF is saying rapid growth of Bitcoin and crypto will impact global financial systems. And the only reason the article stated that they said this is because um, the crypto industry and infrastructure employed by exchanges are relatively new and fundamentally different from the technologies implemented by the traditional finance sector. That's the only reason they give that says why the IMF said the rapid growth of Bitcoin and crypto will impact global financial systems. Now, also in the article, they said that if as time goes on and the infrastructure strengthens, then it'll become stable. But that's really the only reason why they said that. They didn't really say that, oh, it'll destabilize a country or anything like that. The only reason they say it is because of the technical infrastructure, because of the hacking and things like that. And I do
anybody
agree.
else have an analysis
Yeah,
on this?
yeah. But I do agree that they said with continuous efforts to strengthen continuous investment, it'll strengthen the infrastructure and make also investor protection, custody laws. Just like I said, Coinbase and Gemini are insured. So as time goes on, the space will become more and more secure.
Okay, so let's say they do secure it, right? What would be like the number one problem from that? Because I know a lot of people, put their money into it to clean their money, right? So, what do you think the biggest problem is going to be from now to a point they do get it regulated and secure, right? Uh, that they're going to be facing.
Well, what the thing with cryptos is the allure is people can become their own bank. They are in control of their own cryptos, whether they hold their own private keys. Private keys is, you access how much you own in whatever cryptocurrency. So if you're out here telling people that I have X amount of Bitcoin, Ethereum, or whatever, and a person find out a way to hack your computer, which it has happened before, even to the best of us, you can lose your money. That is the insecurity of crypto, which means you can't go to someone and say, well, I got hacked, I lost this, my last wallet.dat file said I had X amount of this currency, can you restore it? No, it's gone. It's gone. There's no help desk to go to. But what they're saying, as the space gets better and better and more secure and more investment goes into it, they're going to find ways to implement security into crypto.
Yeah. I am just scanning through that article real quick. Everybody should probably read that. And it's encouraging to just note that they're pointing out that institutions are increasing their insurance. You know how in your bank you'll see the little emblem that says FDIC insured, and what is that? We typically insure it up to like $250,000.
Yes, you're correct. $250,000.
Yeah, you really shouldn't have any more than $250,000 in any
Per
one
bank.
institution. Some people think that I can put this much in savings and this much in checking, and that's $500,000. No, it's just for the entire institution. Anyway, what they're saying in this article also is that some of the crypto, some of the institutions that are expect to handle cryptocurrencies are getting extra insurance because they're expecting more money to come in. So that's a good thing. So that's just more. That should let everybody also know that we're going to have a tsunami effect with cryptos when the time is right, because the institutions are taking out extra insurance. Because if this is not, that says to me that these institutions are expecting new money to come in. not just money being moved from traditional stocks to a cryptocurrency, or else why would they need to increase their insurance? I mean, that suggests to me that they're expecting new money, new people to join, to invest in cryptocurrencies that aren't not traditionally invested in stocks. And we know, just from YouTube, it's a lot of people that never invested before,
Yes.
but are involved in cryptocurrencies.
And
And so
majority
if
of the
that,
people
And the same.
oh, go ahead, Mike.
No, I was just going to say that also with the fantasy football market as well has opened up, a connection to cryptos that has brought in new money that wasn't there before. So it is opening up new lines of businesses and new markets all across the continent, not the continent, but the world itself. We saw what happened with the launch of the Petro in Venezuela, where they are tying their Petro cryptocurrency back to their natural resources, to oil, diamonds, and gold, and other precious metals. So this is actually securing and shoring up the base.
And majority of the people that are investing into crypto are millennials. And to go on a small tangent here, we all know, again, not financial advisors, go to cfp.net, find one in your area. But on a common sense level, you see crypto is basically, there's blood in the streets in crypto. So things are on a discount. You can buy things on a discount. When Bitcoin ran up to its $20,000 heights, all-time highs, that was pure retail investors. And what retail investors are, you, me, and any other family members you have told, and they put a few dollars in there. There was no institutional investment in there. So, and it went up to 830 billion dollars. So with this institutional investment, it can easily kick it up into the trillions of dollars, which means a lot of these top projects are going to increase in price. They're cheap right now. This, if you think about it, this is your reparations. If you put, I'm not saying put thousands of dollars in there, you could put some money into XRP or in other currencies, and
Or Ripple.
right, and it just once it goes off, it goes off. Like Dollar will say, there's a time to sell. Say, hey, once it reaches this dollar amount, I'm selling. Do it. That's fine.
yeah,
So
yeah,
Go ahead, Dollar Will.
there's a time to sell and there's a time to buy, and
this is the
my
time to buy.
opinion, this isn't it. So I know we have some disagreement on this panel on
Yeah.
that, but we'll see. But
But we both
technically,
agree it's gonna go up.
at some point, but I don't think the bottom is in. But when that time comes, the presence of these institutional investors is going to mean you're not going to have a long time to make up your mind. So this is the time to learn about the crypto wallets, get your money together, and have the money in the account. When you have the money in the account, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're invested in the crypto. It can be in sort of like a money market account, like a wait station for you to designate where you want the investment. I talk to a lot of people and they don't set up their trading accounts, stock or crypto, because they have the opinion, well, I don't know what I want to invest in it. Well, do the paperwork and get the account set up and put the money there. To actually make the investment just takes seconds. So this is the time to get stuff situated. And when we say institutional investors, we're talking about financial institutions that control retirement accounts and pensions and things like that. They control billions. Okay, so this is the big money that causes cryptos and Apple and Netflix and whatever other stock you see going to the moon. These stocks go to the stratosphere because of these institutional investors taking your retirement contribution and investing it in those things. It's not the retail investors, which is working stiffs like us. We don't really have the juice to make those things rise. It's the institutional investors that's driving it all. So the fact that those institutional investors are in the crypto space you will get no greater stamp of legitimacy than that. I'm out.
Jack, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I think last time we had a couple of hangouts ago, we discussed like Harvard, Yale investing money into cryptos. So I think
Yes.
that solidifies the credibility of cryptocurrency, right? So I think all these other people see where it's going, but maybe we're not, jumping on the bandwagon, and that's where we're screwing up at. So I think where crypto is going right now is, I think it's going to replace, not the fiat, right? So I think that's where things are going, and that's something we really need to get into, because I think people are going to create instant wealth off of this. So yeah, that's just my opinion.
See, Boogie, you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, just really quick, man. If like this question is to anybody that's an expert on it. Now, if I was to proceed into investing into a crypto, what would be a decent number to start with? Because from my understanding, and I'm really only fundamentally sound on cryptos. Let me just put it out there. But from my understanding, cryptos aren't backed by anything. So what would be a good starting amount if I was to jump in there, to where as though it doesn't start to tap into my lunch money, so to speak?
So I just want to we always preface the hangouts with we are not CFPs, we are not certified financial planners, so make sure that you consult a CFP at cfp.net. But to answer your question, how you approach it in terms from a dollar amount, it's usually lunch money, like you had just stated. So whatever you spend on lunch per day is what you will probably invest into it, and then you multiply that times how many times you spend on lunch or dinner or a date per week or per month or whatever it is, that however frequently that you go out and spend that money. I usually spend, when I used to work out in the field, I used to spend like maybe $10 on lunch. So that would be the investment I would make into cryptos. And then you have to factor in what kind of cryptos are you investing into. There's all types of ways now to do it that wasn't there a couple of years ago. I think they're starting to use ETFs now, exchange traded funds. So that makes it easier to invest into to the market. I know you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I would say to stay within the top 10 to 25 cryptos. That is a sure bet. Bitcoin is what brought everybody to the party, so it has some staying power. The other cryptos in the top have things that are backing them, such as XRP. Well, I won't say things, use cases. They have certain use cases that attract investors to them. So, like Mike said, use your lunch money and stay within the top 10 to 25 cryptos, and you'll pretty much be safe.
And when you say top to 10 to 25, you mean top 10 to 25 by market cap?
Correct, by market cap. Oh, you can go to coinmarketcap.com and you can see the top 10 to 25 by market cap cryptos.
Now,
Yeah. I would like that. Go
ahead, Dollar. I'm sorry.
I just want to answer that question too. I get those kinds of questions if it's when I'm talking about something like risk. When I talk about risky stocks or risky investments, I tell people, when you go to a concert, that entertainment money which you might spend to go watch, a Beyonce or something, you take a date to that. That's one level. And then I say to people up to, say, an amount that you would spend going to, I can't say Atlantic City anymore, but Atlantic City or Las Vegas. So somewhere between there, an amount of money that if you lost it, you're not going to be complaining and depressed about it. So
Right.
not that much money that you're going to really miss, because it's risky.
Yeah, I got you, man. Yo, I have a quick question. It's kind of off of this topic, but not really. But now the AEI article that Obsidian was talking about, right? Like the 2.5 black men that's in the upper middle class. Well, I think it was middle class or solid middle class. But whatever it was, 2.5 million black men are in the middle class. Now, how much of that is when they say middle class is dependent on, liquid or credit? Because a lot of Americans are being held up off of credit. Like, you see what I'm saying? Once we got taken off of the gold standard, it was nothing up to back up the U.S. dollar, but just, full faith on your government, that everything was going to be okay. So how many people are being held up by, keep extrapolating credit and keep getting credit and kind of got to pay that back? And how many people are in the middle class because they make that kind of money? It has nothing to do with
I
crypto,
haven't read.
but I was just thinking about it just now. Because there's nothing to back up crypto as far as something hard. It's just kind of, faith in it. But that could be the same thing as well with people in the middle class these days. Because credit gives you the illusion that you're doing okay a lot of times. But if you talk about liquid, how many people can go out in their bank account and touch 10 grand? Not a lot. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, most Americans don't even have $1,200 in their savings. So, but to answer your question, I haven't actually read that article myself and that report. But what I will say is that what would give the value of a quote unquote middle class metric would be assets. So you may own multiple vehicles that could be a Cadillac or a Mercedes that could actually put you into a middle class category just by from an asset management perspective. And then you factor in the house is the main determiner that you're in the in middle class by the value of the house itself. So if you have a house in somewhere like Baltimore or even DC, especially DC, that could actually be worth 300,000, 400,000 off the rip, even a rundown one. So you're starting to see a lot of black men who did come out of the military get access to these veteran based
VA
financial
loans.
VA loans. You get access to those type of those instruments that allow you to acquire these assets. Then you're going to be in the middle class. And because there's so many black men who have either served or worked with law enforcement, have access to higher income. It's allowing them to own a lot more assets than say your Pookies or your Ray Rays who don't have any sort of income at all.
Yeah, I would say
income.
I have not read the article either, but I did read something. I read some information on it, but I don't remember the breakdown that you're asking. But I do remember reading something staggering in an article I read in that same article addressing it. It said it's quite common for people in the middle class to have like $30,000 of debt. So that's so you factor that in there too.
Well, the reason why I brought it up, because that could bring a lot of context to that article as well, and that it would take away a lot of validity of the article if you was to break down the individual finances of, like, I know that's impossible, but the average American, just like you say, Dollar Will, could have $30,000 in debt. So that means you are in the middle class, but you pretty much one or two bad paychecks away from, sleeping in a snooty fox. Like, you know what I'm saying? And so you can have the illusion of being middle class, as far as your house, this and that. But credit, credit to me is very dangerous in the wrong hands. Because it gives us the illusion that we are somewhere that we really not. You see what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, you're
No, go
absolutely
ahead.
right. You're absolutely right, because it's also information out there, that data that shows that it's quite common for Black people to reach the middle class and fall back into the poverty level within a lifetime. So that's a different. That's what's unique about us. We're not able to sustain it, although we reach middle class. I mean, staying there is an issue, because one will usually get fired more for one reason or another. Usually discrimination is real. We're not able to handle health catastrophes. It's many number of things. One person can be doing well, but they have other family members who are not at the middle class level, so we have burdens to try to help everybody else. So maintaining middle class status is also an issue for us too. And so with um, this downturn in the market, whether it's here or not, that's fuzziness that I'm trying to wrap my mind around. We could very likely be in it right now. A lot of us are going to end up falling out of the middle class.
Yeah, and that's going to be a tough fall, because if you think about it, if certain people can only hit their bank account and touch $1,200, that's what's that, a mortgage payment for 1 month if you happen to lose your job or your business is not doing good at that time. So you going from middle class to poverty if you can't sustain yourself for at least 6 months to get back on your feet. Now that right there, I think that AEI article would be doing more damage than good, because it wouldn't be putting it into context. Like, well, it's a difference between being middle class and solidly middle class, because when you're solidly middle class, now you're looking at multiple assets. You might have more than one property. You might have things that you can sell if you get in a tight bond and things of that nature. So I would be interested to see the actual financial breakdown, and not just this was just something I was thinking about, because
You're talking about raw data.
yeah, man, because if you really put that article in some kind of context, man, I'll say this. The first time in my life when I joined the military and I was around white folk, I just wasn't impressed, right? I grew up in an all-black city. I wasn't impressed by white folk. But, because I figured out, well, damn, they live just like us. But I didn't encounter a lot of white folk growing up. But I did notice a lot of white folk had credit lines out. As far as liquid, a lot of them didn't. I'm talking about just average middle class. A lot of them didn't have the liquid that they can touch, but they were more financially sound on credit, and they was able to finesse their credit to make it work for them. And that's one of the biggest things that I picked up off. And so I was always cognizant of that. Like, you know what? Let me stay on top of this credit piece, because I know this is going to be more important to me in the end than just having, $300,000 just sitting in the bank. You see what I'm saying? Like the average
Well,
white
let me
folk
let me
is no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
let me just add to this. Part of the reason why Black people have class fragility is because there's a lack of inheritance, generational wealth, right? So white people tend to pass down a lot of their assets in the family. So you see a lot of white people who may have served in World War I and II and III. Even Trump, for example, his father obviously was a bootlegger and everything else, but he was able to transfer that wealth that he generated from those immoral practices to Trump, and that allowed Trump to be who he is today. For Black people, they don't have that sort of flexibility and elasticity. Um, if you are in the middle class right now, there's a lot of fragility there because there's not a lot of room to play around with, and anybody knocks you off, whether it's like Dollar said before, that you get knocked off because you got fired, or because you got injured, or because of some kind of illness, or you're too busy trying to bring other family members up by the by the wayside. A lot of that plays into black people's class fragility, and unfortunately, although that AEI article sounds like it's pointing out that black men are doing better than what everybody thinks, they're only one paycheck away from the homeless shelter, the Pine Street Inn or wherever it is that they're going to
Yeah, the
be.
Snooty Fox.
Yeah. Well,
So
we need
yeah.
to move on to the next article.
Okay.
So the next article is from QZ.com. A new $60 billion agency is the clearest sign the U.S. is worried about China's Africa influence. So, to give you a synopsis of what's going on, when Obama came into office, he established an agency, I think it was called OPIC, that was that was an agency overseeing Africa's American investments. And when Trump came into office, he basically dismantled that because he wasn't impressed with it. He didn't like the way it was going. It was very bureaucratic, according to him. He then turned around and came up with a new agency that would be worth $60 billion in investment and oversight inside Africa. United States is very worried about what Africa is doing inside. What China is doing inside Africa. So, if that's going to be the case, I don't think that helicopter money works, and I don't think that paying off leaders is a way to invest into Africa. So, if China's going to be in Africa, they're building up the infrastructure. If the United States is there, they're trying to sell weapons. They're trying to train, use their soldiers to train African soldiers. To me, it doesn't really help. And my thing is, if you're going to spend $60 billion in Africa, what about reparations in America? You ever thought about that, Trump? Anybody else have anything you want to add to this?
Well, I would say this: if he's spending $60 million in Africa, then that would be more beneficial to what he is trying to do, because eventually the United States are going to be looking for ROI on that, whether it's land or whether it's something else that African can offer as far as resources. Now you talk about reparations, that is not going to get the government anything back. It's probably going to set them back. So I can understand why they would do it. For Africa to be indebted into the United States, especially the way China is rising right now, that would be a smart move to me for the United States to want to get in. But right now, from what I'm seeing, and just off the little bit that I've read about these Chinese people in Africa, they are in knee deep with Africa right now. They are even intermingling with children and sleeping with the locals. So they are in knee deep with these guys. So the United States are pretty much behind, if you ask me.
Oh, I agree. So basically, Mike, you saying that Africa is dating and sending out choosing signals to after China and America, and the price of the date is just gone up.
Yeah. So Mike, you said it kind of fast, but I need you to go ahead and repeat it. You said if America is doing, spending $60 billion in Africa, they're doing X, but preceding that, you said when China spends $60 billion in Africa, they're trying to do what?
No, what I said was when China does business in Africa, they think about the infrastructure first, right? So the deal is if we have access to African resources, then in exchange we'll build up the infrastructure. This is a win-win situation, no matter how you want to look at it. I know there's a lot of pro-black people or people in the conscious community that says that we don't trust China, but you also shouldn't trust America or the Europeans, because neither one of them are doing any justice in Africa. But at least the Chinese are coming in and building up infrastructure. At the very least, there are highways and railroads put in place now that wasn't there 30 years ago. Even 5 years ago, it wasn't there. So what we're seeing now is China is part and partial to Africa's future. And the United States is basically a boat anchor. You know, we don't really need more guns and more tanks and more M4 rifles in the hands of Nigerians. I just don't see the value in that.
Yeah, think about it like this too, man. You know, I think I seen something where Beijing extended a $2 billion loan. I think it was to Angola, but that was in exchange for tens of thousands of barrels of oil a day. And you know, so China is looking ahead of this because the United States had already tried to lock up the oil in the Middle East. You know, so China couldn't go over there to get their oil. So China know what the hell they doing. You know, like they trying to extract this oil and reinvest in infrastructure in Africa. And so, you know, I think they pretty much ahead of the game when it comes to some of this stuff, man. Like they over there for resources, man, and I would think some land mass as well. You know,
Right, and they are. You would be right in the sense that they want resources, but oil. They had oil contracts with Gaddafi, and when the Europeans, the NATO mission, took place and they bombed Gaddafi, the first things they did was they tore up the contracts with China and Libya, and then kicked out the Russians as well because Russia had a $10.5 billion arms deal with Gaddafi just before he died. He couldn't get access to it because the United Nations Security Council decided that they were going to suspend that arms agreement. So they put an arms embargo on Libya first, and then they put in a no-fly zone, and then they basically took out Gaddafi, and I mean literally took him out, dragged him out of a sewer drain. But what my point in saying is that Gaddafi in many African countries had contracts signed with the Chinese that the Americans and the French were looking to tear apart. And the first ones they tore apart was that with Libya. So the Chinese had to go find oil somewhere else. So they also went out and found oil with Iran and Venezuela. So now they're trying to take down Iran and trying to take down Venezuela as well, to trying to suffocate China so that they can no longer get the energy that they need to keep their manufacturing base going and slow them down. But the last time the United States cut off a country from having oil access and put an embargo on them was in 1941, and that caused World War II in the Pacific Theater. And the United States almost lost that one. So I don't know if they think they're going to get the same results by interfering in Chinese affairs in Africa. You know, that can lead to a major showdown on the continent itself. And Africans may be divided on which side to take, whether they take the Chinese side or they take the white man's side.
And this is my position on it. I'm not saying that China isn't doing a couple, good things there, and having a bunch of great headlines, but just from on the ground, boots on the ground here in America, interaction with Asian people, or let me just go and take that out the equation. I was just going to say this, whatever China's interest may be in Africa, I'm positive, I will bet the house, my 10 toes, everything on it, that it's being more opportunistic than it is being altruistic, so and I don't knock that, if they're pursuing their best interest, but it is absolutely for them, in them being more opportunistic than it is them being altruistic and trying to bring water or coal or fire or housing to these people. It's what's it called, pro quid quo or something like that. There's something in it for the pro quid quo. Well, yeah, whatever. That's just, thank you.
Yeah, quid pro quo. Yeah,
that's all.
I think there's no altruism. I think that would be foolish for anyone to expect that from people who are trying to look out for their own interests, or countries, I should say, they're trying to look out for their own interests. The reason that they're building up Africa, and this is what, if the Europeans are smart, they should have done, in the light of the huge migrant crisis Europe is having, because a lot of African countries are destroyed, is they're not building it for altruistic reasons. They're building it so that the people there will then buy Chinese products. That's the end goal, and to secure their natural resources. So there should be no illusion as to why they're doing it. You can, you know, you can have an opinion on whether, you know, it's is it better to side with the Chinese or the Europeans, but their front and center is, you know, their interests. But I guess just to briefly speak about the $60 billion, I see this as a great opportunity for, you know, black men to get in and start investing in Africa, you know, with the backing of the U.S. I've tried looking to see what kind of details it is for, you know, this agency, but I haven't found anything, you know, yet. I'll still have to look into it. I don't know if you guys know about it.
It's really for politicians to offload their money and making Africa an offshore vessel, and the money goes into the other, you know, the other African leaders' pockets. You know, basically, palm grease on.
Okay. I see.
But I guess I want to go to the chat as well. Let me see what's going on. Let me scroll up. The only so Tony Lackey says the only issue with China building infrastructure is that China doesn't hire many native Africans. Actually, that's starting to change. That's been changing the last few years. So the African Union has stipulated that at least 1/3 of your labor force has to be of melanated men, African men, and women too. Women are involved in that too. There's a lot of female engineers over in Africa. But the point that I'm making here is that those standards have changed, where you're starting to see a lot more Africans partake in the labor class of the infrastructure development. So that's been resolved, I think, in most of the countries.
Yeah, but I would say this too, like the rapper guy Akon, he was able to secure $1 billion loan from China. That's even better. $2 billion loan from China to you know, get some electricity popping over there. So, you know, yeah, it is time for brothers to get in. And you know, he's a native African, but you know, he wasn't going to get that money anywhere else but China. And China was smart because they know they're going to get that return on that money.
Well, they didn't give him cash. They didn't give him cash. They gave him a $2 billion credit line to spend. And the solar panels that were supposed to go into the United States under Obama for Solyndra, the whole Solyndra scandal, actually got blocked. So they were sitting in a warehouse. These solar panels were sitting inside of a warehouse that needed to be used, and Akon was the right guy to actually facilitate this whole entire project inside Africa and made him look good. The Chinese got those solar panels, you know, out of the warehouses, and it brought, you know, electricity to a grid to the you know, to the continent that wasn't there before.
Yeah. I know China has a 500-year plan. What's Africa's 500-year plan? Are they looking? Are they playing the long game or are they playing the short game? Because China, again, they've been planning like 5 years ahead of time. So what about Africa? What are they doing?
Africa's game plan is extremely dependent on who invests into it, right? So the idea is to bring Africa into a first world nation by 2080.
By did you say 2080 2080?
Yes.
Now, would you believe in now, Mike, would you believe that because I remember Professor Pilo Labamba said the biggest problem of Africa has never been the civil wars. It has been corruption. You know, that's what he said. You know, I'm pretty sure he would know better than I.
Amen.
Now, would you agree with that statement?
I'm hearing a lot of feedback in the background. If you're not talking, can you please mute yourself? T-Boogie, could you repeat that again?
Yeah, I was saying Professor Pilo Labamba, you know, he said the biggest issue with the continent of Africa is not any of the civil wars that they had. It always has been corruption. Now, would you agree with that?
Yes. So, in the great Paul Kagame, who's the head of the African Union and head of Rwanda, actually tackled corruption earlier this summer. And his idea to tackle corruption is to put tariffs on everybody doing business in Africa from outside the continent. Russia does, well, I shouldn't say Russia, but the European Union does a lot of business in Africa because they're a former colonial power. So the idea is to put tariffs on European and Chinese goods coming in, so that you wouldn't have to grease the palms of African leaders to get your corrupt ways going. So that they're tackling these issues, and on the other hand, they're also starting to repossess some of these assets. There are a lot of sons and daughters of African leaders who are basically having yachts and Bentleys and all types of Bugattis out in in Dubai, stashing their stuff offshore so that they can't they can't be confiscated by African authorities. So that stuff has to stop. They operate in this way because there's a lack of governance and oversight. So once you start having oversight put in place and governance put in place, a lot of that corruption is going to go away, because once these African countries get into the blockchain game, you're going to have to start being honest, because the blockchain is going to force you to be honest.
Yeah, I got you, man. I was just bringing that up, because a lot of people like to, like when we talk about Africa and it's always the white man and this and that, but you got an African, who has been studying this thing, and he said, look, corruption has hurt us more than anything, and all the natural resources that has been over there. It's like, well, why aren't you guys doing anything with it? Not all, but I think a lot more can be done. But there is a lot of corrupt officials over there.
Which kind of lends me to put my tinfoil cap on, my tinfoil hat on, and to wonder if China's being led into a trap into Africa, to where everybody else
Get
is
a
falling back,
trilateral commission.
opening the doors and be like, hey, China, go ahead and do what you want to do, build this, build that. You got it, because and that leads to my question, because I don't know. So anybody on the panel, how long has China been doing these have relations with Africa on a significant scale? Has it been 5 years,
1950s.
20 years, sir?
What, you mean modern times or just generally?
Modern times.
Since the
Africa's
1940s.
been there since colonialism. Yeah, they've been there since colonialism.
Who, China?
Yeah,
yeah,
1940s.
They've been there since the 1940s. So.
Okay. Yeah, they were helping African countries, resist against the European occupation.
A lot of people laugh too. To sign on what Noah was saying, North Korea actually helped liberate a lot of Africa. The Egyptians even helped the Palestinians, helped the Syrians, helped out. What do you call that? Zimbabwe. That's how Mugabe came to power. Got a lot of help from the Chinese and the North Koreans and the Vietnamese. In exchange, African banks then was washing North Korean money once the sanctions got put in place. So there's been a lot of relationships and camaraderie between the continent and East Asia. So, for a lot of people who don't really understand why China is there because they help facilitate a lot of their liberation.
I didn't know that. Thank you.
But now,
go ahead, Darryl.
No, I'm going to say it's more about the corruption thing. I mean, when the various countries in Africa, get more of them get stronger and more diversified economies, they'll be able to better absorb corruption, because there's always going to be corruption everywhere. We have corruption here. It's just that we have a large diversified economy that at this point of wealth, we can absorb it.
Right. I'll have to co-sign you on that. I think it's Africa has a governance problem, not a corruption problem necessarily, right? They lack institutions. A lot of the institutions they have right now, for the most part, is informal institutions. So some areas they have tribal leaders. Some areas they have warlords. Those are all forms of governance, but they in terms of like the formal institutions, courts, legislative bodies, military, the police, all of those are, at the moment are very weak, so they can't have oversight over both of the economy and the leadership, right? In America, oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and once somebody's mic is breaking up a lot.
That's you, Lino.
It's
No,
Lionel.
it's Lino. Yeah, Lino, you should reboot your computer. Into kind of tag along on what Noah was saying, is that they don't have oversight now, but once you start putting governance in place, that's going to shake up the trees. You're going to start to see a lot of people, a lot of politicians, and a lot of individuals who are participating in this start to run and scurry, and they could actually push back as well. Basically repealing votes and things like that. You see that happening right now between the EFF in South Africa and the ANC, and see how much physical conflict is coming out of between the EFF and the ANC right now. Fights breaking out in the parliament, fights breaking out in the street. People being divided on issues because the EFF is taking the ANC to task over corruption. We saw the former South African president early this year stepped down because of corruption, and now this new African president, I think Cyril, is actually just as corrupt as the last one. So Jacob Zuma, who was the former president of South Africa, there's been a lot of corruption going on in most African countries. So the only real way to tackle that is to start punishing people. And I hate to say it, but Saudi Arabia seems to get it right. If anybody is not playing by the monarchy's rules, they basically put you in a hotel and lock you up in a soft jail.
Now,
do you think? Go ahead, bro. Go ahead.
Yeah, just really quick. Now, do you think China is trying to make a play to grab more land and have their people have some type of dual citizenship with the continent?
I don't think
do you
so.
think that could be a long-term move?
In terms of, you mean Chinese people going over to Africa and living there in large numbers?
I would say, because it's going to get to a point where China is already overpopulated. Like, what do you do with those people?
They're too poor to send to Africa. I don't know if that makes sense. But the ones that
hold on. They're poorer than the people in Africa.
In the rural areas, basically, where a lot of the people are. Yeah, they're dirt poor. China is it's in between a developed and a developing country. Their income inequality is vastly more extreme than here in the United States.
Right.
But
and there's only 1 million. There's only 1 million Chinese inside Africa as it stands right now. So they make up less than 10% of the continent's population. So you're also starting to see many African nations start to deport a lot of Chinese as well. In the same way in America, they deport Latinos back to Central America.
Yeah, like that was just a question I had, man, because I think somebody said China is thinking 50 years ahead. Eventually, man, this earth is going to be overpopulated, man. It's going to be less like land mass and everything, and all of that's going to affect global warming. So like this thing is going to have a shit hit the fan moment. Not to go too off on the deep end, but now if China is thinking ahead, they like, look, if we can get our bones in here early, we can carve out a nice piece of land for our people over here in Africa, give them dual citizenship, or whoever can find refuge in China. We always got some acres of land, hundreds and thousands of acres of land in Africa that you guys can come to as well. That we already have the infrastructure on the ground. We already have the jobs and the economy set up. Like, I wouldn't put it past them, to be honest with you.
I would do it.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, I
I
agree
don't
with you,
know.
brother.
That's kind of asking for war, though. They have a lot of people, and right next door is Mongolia. They have Vietnam.
But who's
They
going
could
to go
send
to
their
war
people
with
to
China?
all of
Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, do they?
right.
That's not.
But I mean, look at the distance, though. Why send all those people all the way to Africa, which is extremely different, climate, when they could send them to Vietnam or Mongolia or there's those sparsely populated areas in Western China like Xinjiang province or Tibet
But how
or
many resources
there's a
are
lot of
in those
space.
places? Like, you see what
No,
I'm
no,
saying? How
China.
many?
Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, but I was just saying. It would be more economically feasible to send them to Africa, because while they're over there, like, now you tapping into their resources as well. So not only do you have infrastructure, now you getting resources to actually build wealth while you over there. It's not a lot of
Right.
wealth in North Korea
Mhm.
or
No, no.
Cambodia
I mean,
or wherever.
for
there's a lot of untapped there's a lot
go
of
ahead.
untapped potential. There's a lot of untapped potential in North Korea right now, which is why they're trying to call for not just for a ceasefire, but to bring the two Koreas together, because North Korea has $1 trillion of resources that are untapped, and that United States has been wanting to get to, but they can't. And in exchange, the South Koreans can actually help develop um, North Korea into a point where they're an actual second or developed power within the Asian theater. So when we look at Africa, we have to also take into consideration that China is just Chinese people on the ground are just a blip on the radar. They don't run shit. They're not in the parliament. They don't make any political decisions. That it's inconsequential to the bigger story. I think, taken from this article, for us, this is the bigger opportunity for us to take advantage of, and for black men to start investing their money. I would also say black women too, because Dr. Yaya is in the chat. For us to invest our money into, because that's where the potential is going to come from. All your resources over there. We don't, in the United States, we don't have those same resources, so we can't actually innovate a lot of new technology that would actually be beneficial to the greater society.
What I was gonna say is regarding a lot of the corruption is because of the old heads, right? So, do you think the millennials are gonna be the ones to take charge and go about things differently than the older generation? Because in Uganda, you have Bobby Wine, right? He was trying to institute change, but again, the older generation went after him. So it's like, do you think the millennials are gonna be the ones to take hold of Africa and lead the frontier?
More than likely. I mean, you saw it here in America, right? I think Martin Luther King was like a millennial back then, right? He was the same age.
Was that for me?
And Africa's population is extremely young. What is the average age? Like 21 or something in the early 20s, right?
It's under 25.
Right. So
I
by
think half
just
the population is under 35 or something to that effect.
so mathematically, it suggests that we're gonna see a wave of younger leaders.
Right. I guess to answer C Boogie's question, I maybe to speak a little bit to the geography of China, or I should say the population. I'd say about 2/5, a fifth to 2/5 of the population live on the coast. Uh, from Dalian in northern China, near the North Korean border, all the way down to the Hong Kong, Shenzhen region. So that entire western area is where a lot of the population is. But China is huge, and the middle of the country is very sparsely populated. But the reason that is because it's geographically so difficult for people to get around. So the Chinese government actually, for the past 20, 30 years, has actually been doing a huge urbanization push where they've been taking people from these rural mountainous areas or the desert areas and moving them into the cities because it's cheaper than, the thousands of PLA soldiers that are dying just trying to build bridges, from across the mountains. So they have a lot of space to work with if they wanted to use it. It's just that, it's very difficult. So
Yeah, and really, really quick, I know we got to move on to the next article, but not to oversimplify the point. But it's kind of like, what Europe did, to the Americans. It's kind of like they discover something and they say, we're just gonna throw a bunch of people over there. Okay, yeah, you come on, go over here, and they gave themselves to go ahead and settle the new land or the new territory. Not to say they didn't have land or territory that the people was already living on, they could go ahead and move into, but they wanted to go ahead and establish a footprint in someplace new. Again, I'm not saying that's what the case is, but it's just an interesting thing to kind of just kick around. Just an idea.
All right. So the next article, Noah actually sent this in. Anti-gravity. You want to take a shot at this? Trump's trade war is forcing Beijing to retreat from its own anti-debt battle.
Okay. The reason I kind of chose this one is because, early, basically, even me, a lot of people are saying, China could hold off for, a very long time in this trade war, because, of course, it's a dictatorship. So, they have a lot more leverage over the economy than, democracy here in the United States. And basically, this is kind of, linked to, I think, the second article you were doing earlier, that China was putting up $100 some billion dollars. So basically, China has a huge debt problem, kind of similar to here in the U.S., but I think theirs is a little bit more systemic, right? I don't know if you guys heard about their huge housing bubble, but there's a lot of corporate debt. There's a lot of debt of the companies on their stock exchanges. The local governments have huge amounts of debt because they've been building all of these ghost cities to prop up the GDP numbers, inflate them. All of that is coming back to bite China. And for the last I'd say 5 to 10 years they've been trying to cut down on that, but now because of these tariffs they have to use that money to now kind of boost their economy and kind of hold off from the kind of cutting down this debt. So even their I forget, I don't know if you can pull up, but I think it's their trade minister or he's the head of their central bank. He's like basically those cutting down that debt is going to have to go on the back burner for the foreseeable future. And that's a huge systemic risk that they have. A lot of people think China is stable, but much like the U.S., it doesn't take much to topple it. Financially speaking. That's kind of what I took from it. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, there's a lot of financial fragility there as well, and there's a lot of political fragility there as well. Although it is solid in terms of a communist agenda, the ground, the people on the ground are very can be very volatile, which is why they have to monitor them, their cyber network access, basically monitoring all that chat, making sure that they're not talking about the government and talking about any
they banned Winnie the Pooh.
Like
it's
right.
So strong that they banned Winnie Pooh. It was this picture with Xi Jinping and Obama walking, and they kind of, some people on the internet posted it with the Winnie the Pooh and Tigger, and I don't know, somehow that must have irked their president. So being petty, he banned it across their internet, just to show you powerful.
Right, and they also banned interracial marriage between black men and Chinese women. So,
wait, is that true? No, I know a lot of black guys that who were married to Chinese women in China. I don't know unless this happened recently. I don't know.
That's interesting.
Wait,
So,
are
next
you
question.
Well,
joking,
the
Mike?
marriage. No, the marriage is not recognized. The marriage is not recognized at all.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's not recognized.
So let's say these trade wars
Okay.
continue, right? Are they going to have to go to war? Because they can't let their China can't let their economy fall. U.S. can't let their economy fall. So are they eventually going to go to war if this persists?
If you block China's movement in the South China Sea, you will see some blood. I mean, see Boogie's military, so he could probably speak more to you know nation state conflict. But if you block China from getting their oil in the South China Sea, they'll retaliate against that, just like Japan retaliated in 1941.
So right now, this whole situation is very volatile. Then, well, um, all we can do is just watch and see how things play out, right?
Yeah, and it's on a time basis as well. You know, it could happen in 6 months. It could happen in maybe a year. Um, the way the United States flew their B-52 bombers over East China Sea, uh, pissed the Chinese off pretty well this week. So
Do you
you
want to
may see
speak on
some
that?
more.
Oh, go ahead.
What were you gonna say?
Oh no, I was just gonna say we're gonna let C Boogie on this after you finish.
I think C Boogie might be away from the computer.
Yeah, give me 1 second. Let me get my headphone situation straight.
So as far as coming to a deal, as far as the trade deal, right? What's going to be what's the best plan for them to work this out? Like, what would have to happen to work out a deal that's beneficial on both sides? Or what kind of deal would it have to be? You guys heard me?
Oh yeah, Mike, are you still there? Or maybe you
I'm here.
stepped away for a little
I'm
bit.
here. I just missed. I'm here. I just missed his question. What was his question?
No, what I was asking was what type of deal, what would have to be worked out on both sides for this to move forward? Because I know Trump wants things a certain way, Ping wants things a certain type of way. So what would work out on both ends?
Drop the tariffs. That's all you really have to do is drop the tariffs. I mean, the problem is the tariffs. It's not so much as whether it's United States or China. It's the United States impose some serious tariffs on Chinese goods. It, that doesn't work well for business. You can't tell somebody to do business with you and then tax them up to wahoo. That doesn't work. And then they put sanctions on Chinese individuals in high-ranking positions over the S-400 surface-to-air missile system that they bought from Russia. So, with that being said, sanctions are a declaration of war.
So, I mean, I saw some stuff today to where, the tariffs, affects like local companies here, Walmart, things of that nature. So, I'm sure everybody's gonna take a hit. Everybody's gonna feel some pain. Us here too. Who, in your opinion, anybody on the panel, do you think can, withstand the pain, take the pain the longest of the two nations, U.S. and China?
Neither one could take it.
I think I would disagree. Like I would say China. Well, you mean take the pain as in far
Financially?
as
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't know the details, but I just saw, some today, brothers were saying, tariffs are affecting U.S. companies, Walmart, things of that nature, and of course, with this article, tariffs are affecting China and their economy or whatever. So it's kind of like if they do I forgot what they say with the swords or with the thingamajigs when they talk, they're whatever that little battle, the standoff. Who can take this standoff, the longest of the two countries.
Well, China.
China.
Well, Asia, period, has already convinced the world that they can manufacture their goods, so they already have a leg up um, with this whole thing. If you want to talk about economically and not, like militarily, like they've been having a leg up on the United States in that matter. They already ahead of us now.
Purely economically. I apologize.
Yeah. Like they already convinced the world that we can manufacture your goods at at such a price that you won't be able to get it anywhere else. And as you ship these goods over there, they already have a pardon me, they they uh they already have the inside scoop on your latest technology. They are ahead of the United States in that, and that's one of the big mistakes that. See, when it comes to capitalism, man, it has its advantages and disadvantages because a lot of times with capitalism, it implodes from the inside. And like, let me explain on that if I didn't make any sense. Now, a lot of times when you get too greedy, as far as making money, and you are in the I want to make now kind of mind frame, you don't think about the unintended consequences. And I think that happens a lot with capitalism right here in the United States of America. You know, 60 years ago, I don't think people thought feminism was going to get that big. Like, I'm just bringing up an example, like they don't think about the unintended consequences. So now with capitalism, man, so you start letting small companies, take their industries, to other countries and this, that, and the third, and offshore and things like that. But you start to notice your country is start to hurt from the inside, man. Now China has a leg up on all that shit. Now militarily, it's not even close. The U.S. Army, well, not even the Army, the U.S. military is already having issues with finding recruits as it is because, the men are so feminized right now and they're trying to feminize all the men. If we had to go back to dog fighting, we won't win. This is why, they so heavily on drones and investing in new technology as far as robots and things like that. Because if the United States had the dog fight like World War II, it's not even close, man. The men are too soft right now. And that's another thing I said, the United States will implode from the inside, and that's another reason Trump is your president now, because a lot of people wanted to see a strong man in there.
Yes.
Our military is not, like, I don't care what anybody says. Our military is not equipped to dogfight at this point, especially with somebody like China. So China and the Chinese people know this. Trust me, they know. So I believe they have two legs up on us economically and militarily. Now, the United States does have allies, but hell, like who's trying to get involved with that right now, man? So, man, I believe China is head and shoulders above the United States right now, man. On many different fronts, bro.
Right, I agree. Politically, China, without a doubt, can sustain more, political pressure, right? Because they have one party and a guy and a kid and a president who's basically a president for life. Here in the U.S., if Trump really does get, these tariffs get too bad, people will just vote Trump out or they'll impeach him. But they don't have that in China. So on that front, yes. In terms of economically, both of them, or financially, I should say, both of them, it's not good for anyone. But usually it's much worse for an exporting country when it comes to, trade disputes or trade wars because, they're exporting more, right? They've already placed, I think, the maximum amount of tariffs on the U.S., which was about $34 billion, which is the total export of the U.S. to China, which is very small. But the U.S. can impose up to, 200 to $250 billion worth of tariffs. That is, much more devastating to the Chinese.
But what's going to happen when the world moves to the yen. You see what I'm saying? Like I
Mm.
think that will
Oh, you mean the
offset it,
yuan?
huh?
The yen is Japan.
I think you mean
Oh,
the yuan.
yeah, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah. But
You can
what's
call it the
gonna happen?
renminbi too.
Yeah, like what's going to happen when that happens? You know, like I don't really think it matter what tariffs you put on it. I think that will offset it because now their money is in front.
Well, they're already trying to do that in terms of, President Xi has been going on a trade, signing spree all over the world. He was in Bolivia, he was in Europe, he was in Africa, he was in Australia. He's going everywhere to secure as much trade deals as he can, because the U.S., especially Trump, he's been alienating all of America's allies by placing tariffs on Canada, of all places, right? So that really pushed a lot of Western countries and Eastern countries as well towards China.
Right. I would like to add. I guess I want to rubber stamp what Noah was saying about the political aspect. We are at historic levels for unemployment, historically low levels for unemployment. We just came off of an all-time high in the Dow and the S&P, and when the data comes in, I didn't say if, when the data starts to come in that the economy is slowing down, the dominoes are set up for Trump to get the blame, and they're going to blame these tariffs. They're going to say that did it. But of course, as a technical trader, I don't believe that, and I'm not a Trump supporter, but I don't believe that. But it's politically it's going to blow up. It's going to blow up in his face. It's going to affect his presidency, because he's going to be made the fall guy for something. It's just bad timing. This was a bad point in the cycle to institute tariffs.
Do you think he's going to be in Trump first term, or if he makes it to his second term, he's going to have it in a second term?
I don't think he'll get a second term.
Blasphemy.
I think he got it in the bag, brother. I would disagree.
Why is that?
Well, if this market
we need to go on to the next.
I just want to say, if this market tanks, so I'm just basing my opinion on the fact that not if, when this market tanks, and it's going, I believe it's going to tank during his first term, and Americans are going to be reactionary and unfairly blame him for that.
We need to go to our last article, and this is sent by Dollar Will. So it's seeking out for Exxon eyes Africa for next big oil find. Exploration chief says. You have anything you want to add to this, Mr. Dollar Will?
I'm trying to remember. That's just all fine. The article read it, everybody. It talks about different areas in Africa where Exxon is going to get into some exploration of more I don't want to say pillaging Africa of resources, because they're doing business, but the presence of Exxon there is just another company, big company in Africa, and another reason why we need to be looking, being mindful of who's there, so we can maybe look for opportunities on an individual level for ourselves. But that was it.
And I just want to add, I'm really digging those breathable outdoor casual shoes over there on the left, man. They're looking kind of reptilian. I'm gonna have to Google those really quick, man. That's about all.
Looking teethy.
They look teethy. I like that.
Jack, you have anything you want to
add? No, I'm all set.
Okay, so let me go to the chat and then see some of these comments and address some of these comments, and then we'll have our open mic debate between Brother Preem and Anti-Gravity on socialism versus capitalism.
I'm ready, bro.
Let me see. Dr. Yaya, we're gonna have to actually bring you back for our African project that we're gonna be having in a few weeks. So I see you visited many of those countries and you seem to be very well versed on them. So yeah, I don't see much in the I don't see much in the chat. So what we'll do is open it up for questions. Does anybody have any questions that they wanted to ask based on economics and finance tonight? Any cryptocurrency questions, blockchain, money markets, stocks? I wish Dollar Will could pull up his chart and kind of.
Actually, I have a question. So
Yeah.
I don't know how close you guys have been watching it, but how are we looking for in terms of the Fed raising their interest rates? A couple more times or one more time at least this year, and what are the projections for next year? I don't know if Dollar Will knows this. Or anyone else.
I'm sorry. What was the question? I'm sorry.
No, I'm just wondering, in terms of the Fed raising, interest rates, how are we looking? Are we going to have another one at the end of this year? How is next year looking? What are they projecting, or what are they saying they want to raise it? How many more times?
From everything I read, they're going to at least until the end of the year. I haven't heard anyone say that that it was going to stop raising prior to the end of the year. And just
Okay.
looking at the interest rate chart, the dollar chart, the dollar has a lot higher to go. So I would expect it to continue through the end of the year. So the pain isn't over. So I'm sorry. So what
Okay,
were you
that's
saying?
good.
So Mike, you were saying about the charts. You want me to do it now? You want me to do it after the debate? What do you want? I don't really have that much to do, but when do you want to? I didn't see it on the.
If you had anything to contribute, you could spend 5 minutes.
Okay.
If you don't, that's fine. We can just get straight to the debate and
All right. Let me run through something. Let me run through the S&P, and because we do need to kind of stay aware of that. Hold on, let me get my screen share going.
Got a question from the chat. How long until Bitcoin finally dumps below 6K? We were predicting what, the 4,500 mark, the 4,400 mark by Labor Day, right?
Yeah, that didn't. I'm amazed that it's still holding. One of the articles that that we didn't really get a chance to get on the docket because docket was full. Let me see if I can find it. I'm gonna drop this article in the chat for folks to read. And this will be for folks if they want to answer that question about Bitcoin projection. So a lot of pessimism is seeping in when about when it's going to hit the bottom. It's not there. It's not there. Let me get to the chat.
No, but you're starting to see other coins though. You're starting to see other coins take place though. They're starting to move up. I think XRP has moved up significantly. I think like 28%.
Okay, I'm gonna take a look at that on the fly. I'm not. Let's see what my opinion of it is. Okay, does everybody see this chart right here? You see? Are you able to? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What is this? S&P. All right. I just wanted to show, kind of zoom in on this. Because this is what we need to watch. All right. We are looking at a daily chart. And January, that last peak in January, I'm trying to go for that because the big rage was, everybody got, I thought this was it. Lots of folks thought this was it. Okay, and we fell and we recovered. And now this drop is pretty steep, this close to taking out a prior peak. So this decline has everybody really concerned. And on the stochastic here, the fast line, which is black line, is still pointing down. So that's suggesting that we are still going down. Now, how far down? The market and all these automated computers, they're watching this. They're watching to see if we make a new low here. Now, it is possible that we won't. I would say odds are I'm playing it. Let me show you the way I look at this. In Elliott wave theory, I'm an Elliott wave practitioner. The corrections or consolidations or downturns, if you will, have an ABC pattern. So I would call this A, B, and C. Now, as I put my trusty Fibonacci extension tool on here, it shows that we could get to a C wave here without making a new low. So if I was, let's say, trading this, I would be shorting it, taking the position that it goes down, and until it gets to this area. And I would be, I wouldn't just get out of it when it gets to this area. I'd be watching to see if it crashes through it and continues further to make a new low. So everybody's just kind of watching this and not sure what it's doing. But I wouldn't be holding on, for my personal situation. I would be out. I would have been out. I'll tell you when I would have gotten out. Anytime a trend line breaks, it scared me. I'd get out. So you just draw a line. This can't get any more basic than that. When that trend line broke, now that's pretty typical. When a trend line does break, you see it drop pretty seriously. Now you had anybody that had a trend line up, they would have saw this green candlestick and it bounced up, and you put a stop loss order in. So if it drops down here again, you get out. You put one right below this, and you get out. But so right now the bias is still to the negative side until we see a higher high made in these candlesticks. So you got, so you can see it look like a staircase, a high, until you see a candlestick that overtakes the high in the previous one. You have to maintain a negative bias. So that's the S&P 500. That's if you work for the federal government, your the main account, I think they call it thrift or whatever. And most employers, most companies in your retirement account, you're in some fund that's pretty much tracking the S&P 500. So this is a big deal. Now I have not looked at XRP in a while. I'm gonna check that out real fast just because you guys mentioned it. But why am I? Ripple dollar. I think this is what I want. Come on.
Should be XRP.
Yeah, but I'm clicking this and it's not giving me. It's many XRP. I want XRP US dollar versus US dollar.
Right.
So hold on, let my screen. MacBook Pro 2012.
Oh, that would explain it.
It's hanging in there. I haven't looked at this chart in a long time. Okay, I'm looking at a weekly chart. Okay, I'm seeing my stochastic is pointing negative. That's that black line here I'm looking at quickly. We'll see. We got a high here in this red. You see every candlestick is a lower high. Even the current one has not made a new high. So the rule is downtrends make lower lows and lower highs. So until that rule is violated, you have to consider XRP as still going down. So let me see what I can see about Bitcoin. So until that rule of what a trend is, until BTC USD, until that rule is violated, the law, then you have to consider it going down. Now, in technical analysis, the rule, the objective is to be disciplined and not try to guess the bottom. You want to let the bottom confirm that it's a bottom. We discussed two ways tonight. You put a trend line on it. That's one. Another way is you wait for a higher high to be created. On my stochastic, the fast line is pointing negative. That's telling me that this the bias is negative. So you don't want to bet against this. Looking on a daily chart, we didn't make a higher high here. We did here, but it wasn't a serious commitment. You don't see a body on this. You just see a wick. So it wasn't like a lot of a big volume of purchases there. So that wasn't really believable. So it's definitely not up. And so everybody's looking at this and this. What I maintain that we're going to we're gonna come down. Where's that line? Yeah, we come down. We're gonna look. There's nothing on when we break this line, this support. Nothing gonna stop us from coming down to that probably 3,000 level. We'll see. But when we break through, we're going to have a series of candlesticks. We'll easily be able to put a trend line on it. Once we break through here, I believe we're going to have an ABC pattern below here. Now, in that article did I post the article over here yet? I'm doing
Which one is that?
I'm doing it now. The story about people changing their projections about Bitcoin. Okay. And there is a wedge we got here. Wedge pattern. Want to do a little bit of education here. You can go to Investopedia and you can look up a wedge pattern. Or you can just Google it, but it will usually come up. Oh, I didn't spell it right.
Now, in your chart, it did show that yeah, it's a lot of echoing.
Go ahead.
Yeah, in that chart, it showed that Bitcoin hit 7,500, I think, back in May. Is that what that's what the chart said?
Let me do it. Let me get to it. I think it's slowing my. Oh, here. I'm gonna have a Macintosh question for you guys. I'm gonna do it off air about. I don't want to criticize Apple Live for what I want to ask you, but
Go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna ask you: are they slowing these computers down on purpose?
Probably.
Yeah, that's the whole purpose of it. That's the whole purpose of it. There was a big lawsuit against them about that.
Yeah, because I really believe that's going on with this. Anyway, so back here is September 4th of this past September, last month. It got to 7,300. Is that what you mean? And then it got back up to close to 7,000 the 15th, which is 4 days ago. So Yeah, I'm trying to.
So that cycle is what, every 90 days, 120 days.
I'm sorry. What do you mean, the chart duration I'm looking at?
Yeah,
This is a daily chart. This is a daily
daily.
chart.
That looks like 6 months.
This is each candlestick represents a day on this chart.
Okay. I see what you're saying now.
Okay. Now, sometimes what I do just to, just to get some of the, you can look at it in different time frames to give yourself less information to look at. Okay, it can clarify things. Okay, so you can see clearly here it's not making a new high. That's a quarterly, so each one of those candlesticks represents 3 months. Okay, so monthly it looks even cleaner. There's no reason to be really optimistic. Okay, and then on a weekly, so this is kind of what I kind of how I look at it and see if it's what the trend is. And so this wedge is going to give way soon, and it's going to be ugly. I think it look, and the bias is down, so you don't want to hodl because this is going to get painful. The article I posted in the chat, so a lot of people who was very strongly in favor of buying Bitcoin, they still in favor of it, but they're not necessarily jumping up and down about buying it now. I believe the article talks about Coinbase. They had an index fund that and they've pulled the plug on the fund because
Right.
because the price is going down. It's hard to. I think they want it to be successful. So politically, I think what they're doing is good. Don't attract money into it when you know that it's not. That this isn't really a safe time. So politically, I think, and business wise, I think Coinbase did the right thing. Get a little closer to the bottom, or what technically looks like exhaustion, and then come out with with something that people can get in, because they know they have a lot of inexperienced novices, or mom and pop, what's called retail traders. So it was a good thing that they pulled it back. Let's see. So I talked about, we got the Bitcoin, we saw XRP, so
You can do
S&P,
Ethereum.
and ETH. Oh, what is Ethereum? Yeah,
It should
let's
be. It
spell
should be.
it. Ethereum USD. There was something else. Oh, gold. That's what I want to talk about. Gold. But that's where all this optimism is coming from. That gold has been rising, but we'll see how long that lasts. I don't think it is. I think it's dead. I think today was today. Okay. This is a quarterly chart. Each candlestick is 3 months. I'm going to zoom in more, but you see no higher high. No reason to be optimistic. Okay, let me. It takes a while to get to this point in trading. We all, as you can see it on this monthly, it's just like walking down steps until this trend of lower highs is violated, where we start to take it out. Then it's not over. Now the good news is for me is this is clean. I can take this off. This is clean in that what I like about this chart, and this is a monthly chart, each candlestick is a month, is this, you see one big green candlestick here. The Elliott wave theory corrections are ABC patterns. How hard is it to look at this and go A, B, C? It's not hard. You don't have to, you don't have to be, a Rhodes Scholar to figure this out. Just put a daggone trend line on it. And when that violates, and you see if it makes a higher high, that's it. It can't get no easier than that. And so until you see this thing make a higher high, I wouldn't mess with it. Because again, the goal is not to guess the exact bottom. You want, and you got the stochastic here showing you, you want the whales, the institutional investors to do their job. Let them step in and save this market from, at the bottom, and then you'll see it on the charts. You'll see a green candlestick down here with a higher high. You may see a crossover down here on this stochastic, and then you put your money in, because they have a lot of money. We have a little money. The goal is for you want to get your money in, just after the bottom, and then they put their billions on top of yours, and that's how you get the run up. Hold on for a second.
Well, Ethereum was moving at 600 at the first quarter of the year, and I think we're in third quarter now, and it's we're going into the fourth quarter now, and it's down to what, 204.
You see, it's just been going sideways. The low was the 12th of this month. And so it had a nice run from 187. I'm looking in the info box in the upper left, 187.12. And I'm going to call this the high since then. It went up to 227. That's a pretty nice run from 187 low to 227. And we're looking on a daily chart right here. So it's pretty much been going sideways. And I see I had a moving average here, 33-day moving average. Sometimes I just put these moving averages on here just to function as a like a resistance, instead of drawing a trend line. And that way, if I want to see, if it's ready yet, I just wait and see if the price crossed the line. Like I would probably go and edit this and just put it snug on there. And when the price crosses over it, then you think about buying, because often what happens, the price will cross over the resistance and then bounce back up to it. I'm going to show you one more real quick that I'm watching. Before I do that, I want to do this on gold, and then I'm going to show you how I'm playing it. Okay.
Yeah, Go ahead.
Go for it. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that I think what happened early in the year was there were some whales that dumped their shares in Ethereum and Litecoin, because Litecoin took a major hit. It went from like 180 or 190 down to like $49.
Right. It's ugly.
Same thing with Ethereum. Yeah, it's same thing with Ethereum. Ethereum was moving at 600, and then it just dropped down to like something like 225 or something like that, just something really ridiculous. 199, I think, something close. So
sometimes even these tools
moving sideways.
I don't even trust this tool right here. These tools don't even always work like they should. It's not going to come all the way down here, So in cases like this, put a trusty trend line on it. Okay. So fortunately, it doesn't look like, here's zero right here. This is freaky. Now, if this was a stock approaching the 0 point and technically it looked like it had more to go, I would go, okay, they're going to do a reverse stock split. That's where they would take a stock that's basically getting ready to go under $1 that needs really more room to fall. They would basically manipulate the price. They give you more. They would do something like a 1 for 10 or 1 for 100. They give you like 100 shares for each one that you have, then cut the price of they would manipulate it where you would have more shares, but the price would be higher, but you would not have the value of your shares would be the same. So don't get fooled when technically the stock has more to go, and you look and you go, wow, that's at zero. What are they going to do? It can't go below zero. Well, if this was a stock, they would just do a split or reverse split to give it more room on the chart. But I've never seen that with the currency. Okay, so I don't know what they're going to do with this. But again, not to oversimplify, not to overcomplicate things, just watch the trend line. And gold, real quickly. Okay, we are looking at a daily chart. You see my stochastic is in the overbought state. Anything above 80 is overbought, and that's that. And you should be prepared for it to have a decline when that happens. Okay, this was a low, and the Elliott wave theory, and now the dominant trend is down. So that means the counter trend, it's going to be an ABC pattern. You see it here. We went from oversold to overbought. This would be the B wave, then back up to overbought. I say we're getting ready to go down. All right. We had a nice little support right here. Price here. This is a good place for it to fall. But lots of folks are optimistic and bullish gold. They're just perennially bullish gold, and they're wrong. That's my opinion, and I'm sticking with it. But I want to show you one other thing. I want to show you how I'm in this horrible ETF. It's just horrible, and I'm investing in it. This is a gold miner's bear. It increases triple the amount that the gold mining stocks fall. Okay, so it's kind of weird in that way. Okay, I'm just trying to show you one thing, if I can zoom in on this. Because this stock is resting. God, it's a principle I'm trying to show you about. There we go. All right. Well, this stock has already made this gold bear has already made a bottom a while back. Back here at like 19. It has a double bottom in. The first low is like $19.01, and the second bottom. Then it ran up to like $72, and it went all the way back down to 19.04 cents. Okay, so we already have the double bottom, and this stock. I know this thing is messy. Let me try to open it up a little bit. I want you to really just pay attention. Damn, this purple line. If I can, you got to trust me on this, because this purple line is the resistance. So there was no price above this purple line. It broke out in around July the 23rd, shot up to about $47 and some change, came right back down. This little peak right here, right in the neighborhood of this purple line. So it's a common thing in trading that former resistance becomes future support. And it seems to have accomplished that right here. Okay, so if you see gold start to tank next week, and I believe we will, you think a dollar will, because I'm going to be smiling. I'm going to be making money. But this gold is going to be painful. And let me see if there's anything in oil real quick. But because maybe I need to just look at the dollar. But the dollar, everybody knows the dollar is going to rise because of the gold and oil are overbought. It's time for them to fall some. And also because other currencies in the world are weak, and people around the world are buying the US dollar, which is strengthening the US dollar. Now, the dollar being strong, meaning the dollar being in demand, that allows for the interest rate to be increased, because people will pay the premium to have their money in the dollar. I don't know. This thing is crazy. All right. Just to make the point that oil has been falling since 2008. And we are now looking at a monthly chart. We are overbought on the monthly chart. So anything over 80 is overbought. We're up here at 91 and it's already flat on the stochastic. it's getting ready to come down, which is right with my story of a stronger dollar. And a strong dollar means weaker oil and weaker gold. So all the dominoes are set up, and a stronger dollar is bad for all those cryptocurrencies that are quoted as, say, BTC/US dollar. So dollar strength is going to be nasty for Bitcoin, gold, and or any cryptocurrency that's paired with the dollar. So that's
Also,
kind of
emerging countries, emerging market countries' currencies will also be hit.
right. And so all of this talk about, you know, we want to get off the dollar standard and all of that. When the dollar finishes, I will see how it goes. I believe that when the dollar reaches its high and starts to come down, I think that those talks will disappear because the pain will be over. The pain will be over. But that's I don't really need to get into this. That's about it. I'm gonna give you the screen back. So next week, I think is a very important week to watch. I know I said that last Friday, but gold and the dollar was kind of doing. It's moving sideways this week. Not much happened with the dollar, at least in terms of just moving sideways a lot. So in that, without the engine really revving, gold took advantage of that. But I think we're at some key resistance points in gold, and it shouldn't be much. I can't see how it can go up much further. So when you see or hear that gold is going negative next week, just don't believe that. When they try to peg it to some headline in the news, just go look at the dollar chart and see what happened. That's it.
Thank you, Dollar Will. Now, it's 11 o'clock. We have about 35 minutes left. What I want to do is give the floor to Anti-Gravity to make his case against Preem, who states that capitalism is or socialism is the reason why Venezuela is in a downward spiral and people are eating out of garbage cans. Anti-Gravity, do you want to go?
I can go, but Preem, you want to go first?
No, I'm good. I'm good, bro. I told you, I don't need much. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, also let's give a quick shout out to Ulysses and Christian. What's up, guys?
Peace, brothers. How y'all?
Oh, what's going on, brothers? Yes.
How y'all doing?
Okay. Well, I'll try to keep it short. Basically, it's not necessarily the socialism or their socialist system, because the U.S. Preem is not going to agree with this, but the U.S. is also a socialist country, right? He might not like that, but yes, we are also socialist. So it's not necessarily the system that's crashed the Venezuelan economy. It's just a lot of forces came together at the perfect time. It was kind of a perfect storm. Oil prices went down, U.S. sanctions, attempted coups, destabilization in the region. So all of those things kind of came together at the same time, which is the root cause of why Venezuela, formerly the most prosperous country in Latin America, would have suddenly such a precipitous fall. Along with political instability caused by these forces as well. So I guess that's my short opening statement on it.
Cool. And and is somebody snoring? Yeah, somebody is.
Yeah, somebody sleep.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
Okay. So the first problem is, you said, the U.S. is not is a socialist country. I mean, is the U.S. a capitalist country for the sake of this argument? Is the U.S. a capitalist country or a socialist country, in your opinion?
The exact answer is it's a mixed economy, right?
Okay.
Not exactly capitalist, but then not exactly socialist like Venezuela either. So it's in between.
Okay. Well, then that doesn't tie into our where all this thing started in our thread to where I can do a comparative analysis between the two, because if you don't accept the U.S. as a capitalist country, then I can say this versus this. So
Okay.
I mean, can you for the sake of argument say, okay, for the sake of this right here, we'll just say
the U.S. is okay. Well, I'll go along with that.
All right, cool. So yeah, I mean, Venezuela is a failed state, because it has adapted socialist policies. And again, I agree, no system is perfect, capitalism or socialism. But if I was to choose between those two, or even if you threw communism in there, I would choose capitalism. Simple and plain. It's why everybody runs here. It's not to say that things aren't going to happen. But I mean, if countries didn't, it's not, if U.S. didn't impose sanctions against Venezuela, let's say somebody else did, then you couldn't go ahead and hang the dime or hang the guilt on the U.S. and then Venezuela would still fail. So my whole thing is, I mean, it's fragile, it's vulnerable. It's not. I don't expect it to be perfect, but it failed. Because it adopted a weak model. Socialism.
Okay, well, let's get more exact to what Venezuela actually was. Venezuela was a democratic socialist country, much like Germany, Sweden, Denmark. That, if we want to be more exact, that's the kind of country it is, or it was, I should say. So what do you? So in this vein of logic, you said inherently their socialist system was weak. So, well, how come there are millions of people that are traveling, across deserts, on ringy boat, dinghy boats across the Mediterranean to go to Germany, and also a socialist country?
Well, Germany and Sweden, are those like the Nordic, what they call like the Nordic countries or whatever?
The Nordic countries are Sweden, Norway, Finland. Those
but yeah, when folks talk about socialism, those are the ones, when they talk about like the Nordic socialist countries or democratic socialist countries, those are the ones that they talk about, right? So
yes, but also France and Italy, Greece, those are also democratic socialist countries.
Okay, so those countries allow for like private ownership and private and free markets and things of that nature, right?
Right.
Okay, cool. So would you consider them socialist countries if they allow those those fundamental capitalist practices, free markets, private ownership of land, prizes, pricing, property, business ownership? You can't really call them socialist countries.
No. The socialism allows all of that. Communism is what you're thinking. They're two different systems.
Okay, so those aren't are those socialist countries, communist countries, a quasi social capitalist, communist capitalist, what?
For example, Germany is a democratic socialist country. So when you say communist countries, you're thinking more along the lines of I guess older China, Cuba, those kind of countries. Those are the communist countries.
Okay, so
or North Korea as well. But go ahead.
Cool. So Cuba's communist. Is Venezuela a communist country, a socialist country, or a capitalist country, in your opinion?
Socialist.
Socialist. Okay, so let's just focus on Venezuela here. So my whole thing is Venezuela has regressed into a fifth world country right now. They're eating rotten meat. They're about to go into cannibalism because the socialist model that they adopted there in Venezuela. We're not going to talk about Germany or China or Nordic or Sweden. The
Right.
model that they adapted there, because they are socialists. I don't recognize those other countries, Germany, Sweden, this, that, whatever, as socialist countries because they do practice capitalism there. So we're just going to go ahead
Yeah.
and keep those aside and focus on how all this started with
Okay, I
with
guess the key point is: do you think
Venezuela.
the socialist system is what I guess was the core cause of the ravages of hyperinflation, or do you think that regardless of that, whatever system they might have had at the time, all of these outside factors would have caused something like this to happen anyway?
Yeah. Absolutely. The latter.
Okay.
Absolutely. So whether or not folks are quick to say, well, the U.S. did this and that. Okay, so you pull the U.S. out of it. So if another country did that to them, would they still have regression to a shithole? Yeah, of course, because the model just can't sustain that. And as I said in that thread, things happen. So you can't say, well, if the U.S. hadn't done this or this had. Listen, countries do things to other countries all the time. And if it's not another country doing something to a country, things just happen. We live in the real world. Shit happens. Okay. So, but if the model is so fragile and frail that it can't withstand, like I said in the thread, a gut punch, then you have to kind of look at it and be like, well, man, maybe this thing is not all that we thought. I mean, it's good when it's going going good, but when it goes bad or it breaks bad, all hell breaks loose.
So do you think socialism is more fragile than communism?
Yeah. I mean, nah. I wouldn't know.
Or do you think communism is more fragile?
No. I know. Socialism is hella more fragile than capitalism. I can't speak to communism.
Okay, then what? Yeah. Okay, so you say maybe the sanctions are part of the cause of why Venezuela is in such disarray. But what about Cuba? Cuba has been going through withering sanctions from the U.S. for almost 50 years now. They had a very short break right now when Obama. Latter years of Obama, but then Trump, he reversed all of that. So almost like 60 years continuous of American sanctions, and their country hasn't become like Venezuela, and they have less natural resources than them.
Okay, so yeah, Cuba. Would you say Cuba is surviving or Cuba is thriving?
They're surviving.
Okay, cool, exactly.
But I mean, why didn't Venezuela survive after those sanctions? Why? How come Cuba was able to? Because they're the closest comparison in terms of when you talk about government structure, right?
True. That, brother, I don't have the answer to, but I'm not a proponent of surviving. I'm one of thriving. I mean, so surviving isn't good enough for me. So it's not as if surviving is a win.
So is it surviving under the best circumstances, or are you talking about thriving under? Sorry, let me repeat that. Thriving under, these kind of circumstances where oil prices are low, there's sanctions. Thriving in that environment, or are you talking about thriving just in general? Because Venezuela was thriving, not too long ago, 4 or 5 years ago, 6 years ago.
Okay, and Cuba was thriving when?
I can't say. I'd say the very beginning, early years of Fidel Castro. That's about it.
Yeah. So in the black and white years, I'm not sure if that was the 40s, 50s, whenever that was. Well,
right.
So even in this country, in the United States, I mean, we took a gut punch. You know what I'm saying? We got hit in the guts. We had a recession. We went to war. Things where it went down. They kind of sucked. We survived, but we eventually kind of moved forward to a phase to where we thrive. Okay, and that's what the capitalist system does. It rewards creativity. It rewards innovation. You won't find minds. You won't find the type of minds in those countries. This is straight speculation, but I'm sure I'm right. You won't find minds in those countries that are willing to go ahead and sit there because there really is no reward for creativity or innovation. There is something to be said, where you have a system there that rewards those that solve problems, that create value, and they're rewarded very richly for doing those things. And that's what capitalism does. And that's why
But
people. Yeah, yes, sir.
oh no, go ahead. I'll let you finish. I'll go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, and that's why people hop on the back of pickup trucks and they get in caravans of 2,000, 4,000 people, and they crash our borders because they know, hey, I can get here, and this is the land of opportunity. People aren't running from here into into those countries. To just really make this overly simplified is, I mean, do you find people running to those other systems and those other models, or are they running to a model like this? And a model like this would include those countries like Germany or France or Sweden that have a form of capitalism there.
Right. Well, first, before I address that, I want to address one more part we talked about earlier in terms of Cuba thriving. Cuba overall, that their economy isn't that great. It's doing well enough, but it's definitely by no stretch thriving. But there are sectors inside of it that are thriving. So I would disagree when you said, there are not a lot of great minds are not being, rewarded, so to speak, because Cuba has one of the best medical systems in the world, and it's free for all people in the country. And even, well, no, actually, if you come as a foreign visitor, it's pretty cheap for you to get, either surgeries or, routine medical checks or anything like that. And Cuba actually is the country that discovered a cure for lung cancer. The U.S. is just banned from importing their drugs. That's kind of the tragedy of these sanctions.
I believe it. I believe it. I believe it. And then, again, not to get too far into the weeds, but when someone says they have the best medical system, I would say, okay, best based on what criteria? Best meaning everybody has access, or best meaning innovation, best meaning cures? What does best mean?
Best in terms of access. There's in a few different areas. Well, the first will be, access. There's a doctor basically in every community, right? Mm-hmm. So every neighborhood, you have your local doctor. Your doctor comes to you. If you're elderly, he's able to check up on you. In terms of access, definitely, without a doubt, number one. In terms of, a lot of these sanctions, on Cuba is really preventing it from getting a lot of kind of the cutting edge medical technology. When it comes to technology, definitely the U.S. surpasses any country, So with what they have, right, they've been able to thrive and become the number one for sure in Latin America in terms of innovation, in terms of access, in terms of medical education. Anyone, who has the willingness, can go to get free, education to become a doctor, right? Not like here in America, you have $250,000 in debts, and, they try to weed out as many people, kind of have those hurdles.
Yeah. I mean, and two are really, really quick things. I mean, as far as access here in the States, access is just 911. If you got a cell phone, you just hit 911. You have access to a doctor 24 hours a day.
But they excel because they're kind of limited. Mm-hmm. So if someone has, like, let's say fourth stage, I don't know, let's say colon cancer or something like that, there's not really much that they can do because they don't have the the technology, the really handle something like that, if it could even be handled. But in terms of preventative medicine, absolutely, without a doubt, one of the best in the world, right?
And then as far as, to the whole point that, if anybody wants to be a doctor in Cuba, they can. I can't speak to Cuba, but I can ever speak to Venezuela, for instance. Yeah, since the recent downturn, you got doctors selling ass. Venezuela doctors selling ass in Colombia. Trust me, I know.
Well, that's because because the economy is in shambles. That's kind of a tragedy, but that doesn't look down on the doctors themselves in terms of their education, because a lot of Venezuelan doctors are educated in Cuba, right? Medical technology, medical education, and kind of what do they call it? Medical tourism is one of Cuba's biggest exports. And in
True.
fact, Cuba, when any kind of natural disaster or war or basically anything that happens on the African continent, the first people on the front lines are Cuban doctors. You know, they've done a lot to support it. Venezuela also, not Nicolas Maduro, Hugo Chavez, the former leader of he died a few years back. The former leader of Venezuela, also a lot of
So,
support to the continent.
in your opinion, do you think that socialism done right, socialism done
Mhm.
right, is better than capitalism done right?
Yes.
Where's your
Well,
evidence?
to this extent, I'm not necessarily pro capitalism, but I'm pro free markets, and I think there's a distinction that should be drawn, right?
What's that?
Capitalism, unfettered, leads to what you see here in America, like crony capitalism, where the capitalist class buys out the politicians, and then they do what they want, and they squash, competition, quote unquote, right? They become monopolies. That's why we have regulations to stop it. But in terms of, for example, let's just say black people, I think the socialist model is just more natural, right? But so that socialist model with the entrepreneurial spirit that's clearly evident in Africa, you can see it clearly evident even in Cuba, which they don't allow you to do your own business, but people still find ways to be entrepreneurs on the side. Even Venezuela today, right? A lot of their economy is a black market economy, where if you find a way where you can channel that free market, right, where people are able to have land, much like the Nordic states, you can have land, you can have businesses, you can have, land, liberty, pursuit of happiness, as you would like to say, Preem, right? You can have all of those in socialism, but the socialism part is where it takes care of the people in terms of healthcare, in terms of education, in terms of
Where do you have that?
right.
We
Good.
have healthcare. We have education.
Right, but it's not free, right? So it's somewhere where it's not a barrier, right?
Education is free.
Yes, this is kind of goes to my point, Preem. Before, I want to say, the 1920s, when we had real free unfettered capitalism, where we had the Gilded Age, the robber barons, that kind of capitalism, there was no free public health, education.
Okay.
And in terms of healthcare, there's no 911 back then. Your healthcare was a can of Campbell's soup, right? So that's the kind of, when you say capitalism unchained, that's capitalism.
No, because I mean this isn't quantum leap. We aren't living in 1907 right now. We're in 2018, and in 2018, in capitalist ass America, we have free education, and we have free healthcare. So I'm talking about the here and the now today. We have those things now in this capitalist ass country. So
right, but the world has changed. Having a high school education, is no longer full educational access. It has to include the other levels, as well as it does in Germany. You as a even an American citizen can go there, not only get high school, but college and university education free of charge.
Yeah, no, but you have the opportunity to get a college education in this country. Period. So you have the opportunity if you so choose to, and there is a pathway. No, go ahead.
Well, is the opportunity really there if you're going to come out with 50, 60,000 dollars of student loan debt, which is a drag on the economy? It really does no benefit to a lot of the millennials right now, where they're not able to buy houses, they're not able to, invest in the economy, buy things. Is that really free then?
Okay, well, is it worth 50, 60 grand? Is it?
It
I
shouldn't be
mean,
that high. That's the That's the part.
if you feel that it is, then it's up to you to make the choice to go ahead and do it. If you feel that it's not, then make the choice not to do it. It's
Well,
an option.
that's just
It's
for the
a choice.
regular people. Like, for example, take a look
Mhm.
at doctors, right? They come out with $300,000 in debt. Essentially,
Is that
over the long run, they'll be paying that until they're 50,
all
60.
right?
So
Yeah,
if they take a look at that, is it really worth it?
that's
If they're
that's
going to become you know for example, if an area that we need really critically right now is
mhm,
family physicians, and they're kind of the lowest paid of the different specialties of medicine. So
mhm.
that's a critical need for the country. It's almost a crisis, but
So
they're getting
again,
$300,000 in debt.
but
They won't really be able to pay it off.
yeah, but again, but they don't have that choice is not forced upon them.
Right.
They make that choice. It's up to them to decide if they want to take on that debt burden. It's a choice. It's not mandated. If it costs 500 grand, it's still a choice. If
Right.
they
It's a choice, but
if they
go ahead.
if they choose this the same way that I did to not go to college, that was a choice.
Hmm. Right. But here's the thing, though.
Hmm.
You know, sure, there's personal choice in it, but this, when it comes to mac country level decisions about some things, you have to also look at what is the public good as well, right? So if the public good and the public interest is in investing in the future students, that's when you do it, uh, free of charge, or basically free of charge. Like, I don't know if Dollar Will's still here, but when he was going to university, it was like, what, $300 a semester. If that was the cost today, people could go to get jobs in the summer and pay it off, or get part-time jobs and pay it off. But now that's not really the case. It's kind of become an industry in of itself, right? No one would really say that the universities in Europe are any less better per se than the U.S.
And then
But then,
but we see
good,
Dodd. But we see AG. I mean, then, and I'm not sure if we're getting too far off base here from us for the socialism capitalism thing. So anybody
right?
feel free to go ahead and pull us back in. But then after cats say, well, that's not fair. After they go with that thing and say that's not fair, then okay, that's fixed. And then they say, but you know what? Once we get out of these schools and we have this $250,000 in debt, then we get these jobs, and these jobs don't pay us enough. Well, that's not fair. Okay, then they go to fix it. Well, these jobs pay us enough, but we don't get enough family time. That's not fair. I mean, where the hell does it stop, bro?
Also, are
I
you
mean,
saying socialism kind of has that, where it kind of creeps into all areas of
of
life?
course, it
Right.
is the what's the thing? It's a scorpion on the frog's back or whatever. Yeah, it's a slow creep. Absolutely. I mean, and I'm not saying don't have any regulation, but I mean, you can look at certain things and be like, okay, this is a choice: do or do or do or do or do not. You know what I'm saying? It's a choice. It's an option. But this whole thing with education, well, we need free this. Okay, cool. You got that. Then we'll go on to the next thing. Well, we got free this, but the jobs don't pay us enough, so we can do X, Y, and Z. Okay, well the jobs pay us enough to do X, Y, and Z, but we don't have X, Y. I mean, stop. Then that's when you get into, okay, just go ahead and provide everything, take care of everything for everybody, and you have a planned society, and that doesn't work.
Okay,
Okay.
so then
Mhm.
I guess the main reason why I'm saying is, to a certain extent, is going to be better is it'll always guarantee a few areas of a person's life will be taken care of, right? That's essentially the reason for government, right? Is the social contract. We give our taxes, we follow the law, and in exchange the government does XYZ for us. So fundamentally, what is wrong? I mean, what is better in the capitalist social contract that we have, what does it provide that a socialist one wouldn't provide?
Well,
Right? For example, education, healthcare, and safeguards for wherever. Fill in the third one.
But the thing is, this republic has been on long before you and I got here. It wasn't perfect when it started. It had problems. It tweaked a couple things. It fixed a couple things. But we can sit here and say that this republic is going against what it was founded upon. Is doing exactly what it promised, exactly what it said it was going to do. So there is not, you can't really legitimately say there is something to fix that is giving us a broken contract that is not fulfilling what it said it would. It didn't say it would do all these other things that you would like. Okay. And the whole premise is if there's these things that you would like, that's not written into this republic, is not what this republic was founded upon. Good luck trying to change it. There are plenty of folks, the majority, who are good with what's here. If those things that you want exist in other places and you like them, then those are the places that people need to go ahead and be. But this place is not being disingenuous, is not playing dishonest, is not going against the promise that it made to its citizens. Okay, if that was the case, you would have an argument. But why do you want to switch things around? This ain't that. This is not what this is about. This country has been around for a very long time. It said what it is. It said how it works. Again, and that's what we have. If you want something different, and you look somewhere else, and you say, you know what, I like the way that they do it over there. We need no. We don't need to do it. Go over there and enjoy it over there. That's there. This is here.
Well, to quote the Donald Trump, right? Make America great again. So I'm not talking about something that hasn't been done in America before. I'm talking about something that was, right? So if you look at the historical context, well, let's go back a little bit.
Okay.
America was run a certain way. A lot of the capital, after mercantilism, it started, moving more towards capitalism. Up until the 1920s, right? It's kind of the height of American capitalism. The Gilded Age, the age of robber barons. There's children working in, sweatshops. They're polluting, the air and the streams and the waters. And when in terms of to income inequality, the rich were the richest, basically. No, hold on. This will, I'll get to the point. So the richest at that time were probably as rich, maybe except for today, in terms of the gap between the rich and the poor. And really, that kind of broke down after 1929, when the Great Depression started. So this is when America officially became, a democratic socialist country, right? It kind of left what happened in the past because, FDR, he basically told the elite, he said, listen, you're going to have to break off some of this bread or there's going to be a revolution in the United States, right? So you want to end up kind of like, the aristocrats in France who got their heads cut off by the peasants. And, they made the choice. They're like, okay, we'll do that. So the New Deal started, right? Where the socialist policies began. So this is Medicare, this is Medicaid, this is I'm missing one. Social Security, a huge investment in federal jobs guarantees that they had, right?
The new deal started when? Around what time frame?
I don't know if the other guys in the panel know this. I want to say like 1935.
The New Deal, that was 1934, if I'm not mistaken.
34?
Yep.
Okay.
Right. So in the depths of the Great Depression, right? That's when the New Deals began. That's when America became a socialist country, right? And from 1940 to about 1968, I want to say, that's probably the most prosperous time in American history, which was under, this socialist style New Deal when it was the most in effect. it was not until the 1970s with, Reagan and, the Republicans that started slowly chipping away at, FDR's model, socialist model, that, the wages started stagnating. Actually, it could be also, outside influences, but nonetheless, the United States has slowly started to go down since then. So that's the kind of correlation I'm making in terms of why it would be better to have that socialist style system, with free markets, of course, and elements of capitalism. But that is a better core to have, because you can see it, in the data that was the most prosperous time in America.
And you
That's my
said
conclusion.
and you said during the New Deal, FDR did what? He came out with
So
Medicare and what else?
Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, federal jobs guarantees. So people were given, jobs by the federal government. What else? A lot of these socialist policies that even are still lingering today. That's where it came from.
Okay, so
All right, gentlemen.
Yo.
So time
Back
is up.
to your corners.
Damn. Okay.
Okay.
So
right,
I thought it was a
sounds
good
good.
discussion. But we're gonna shut it down for tonight. If there's no other questions in the chat.
No, I think that's in the chat. We were just listening to Noah and Frame.
So I think that's about it. Thank you all for coming out. Thank you, Dr. Yaya, for joining. See Boogie, straight ahead. Thank you for joining.
Man. I didn't get a chance to greet him and say hello. Welcome to all everybody new who came and checked us out, man.
Yes, sir. And we'll be back tomorrow for Black Military Talk, episode 78. That should be launching about 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But anybody else on the panel have anything else they want to say?
No, man. Good night.
No, that was a good talk with Frame. Shout out to you, man.
Good night, and watch gold prices next week.
All right, you all have a good night.